Laying round home alone on a rainy night like this, starving for your love, hungry for just one kiss. Every raindrop I hear on my window pane, beat so loud and clear, words just spelled your name. I got nowhere to turn to, tired of being alone. I feel like breaking up somebody's home. I know it's useless hanging on when you belong to someone else. Can't control the feeling, 'cause after all I didn't make myself. Yeah. Last night I cried so hard, I believe I caught a chill. Can't control the vibration, my heart just won't stand still. Got nowhere to turn to, tired of being alone. I feel like breaking up somebody's home. Yeah. Yeah. I know you hear me talking. I'm getting awful lonesome here. I know it's useless hanging on when you belong to someone else. Can't control the vibration, 'cause after all I didn't make.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, and good morning to citizens of Tampa. Tampa City Council will now come to order for November 4th, 2021, 9 o'clock session. This morning we have Mr. Miranda with the invocation and pledge, and see the great bishop and also our past city council member, Mr. Bishop Scott here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and council members. I'm really enthused today to have a dear friend of not only mine, but of the community and the city of Tampa, and known throughout all of the Southeast United States. Bishop Tom Scott is a friend not only of mine, but he started back in 1980 in the 31st 4th Street Church of God when it only had 40 parishioners. And through his efforts and working diligently, and I'm sure it took more than himself, it took his lovely wife to help him with it, has now over 800 parishioners. So he's turned it around. He's got many things that he's done in his life to help young people. And if we help them when they're small, they grew up to be good, outstanding citizens. And the bishop is really a kind individual. He's had the pleasure of serving the public, not only in Tampa City Council, as also as chairman, but I believe the county commission also as chairman. So he's a chairman of chairmans. But Bishop Scott has got a wife, beautiful wife, and 3 kids and 12 grandchildren. So he's got a beautiful family, and he's an individual that is loved all the way around. Look at the smile that he has behind me, and look at the willingness that he has to help people. He has sayings like, don't give anybody a hand going down, give them a hand bringing them up. And he is an individual, kind-hearted, willing to work and help anyone, no matter who you are or who you think you are. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring Bishop Tom Scott for the morning prayer.
Thank you, Councilman Miranda, who is a dear friend, and we had the privilege of working together here at City Council, and it was a joy to be able to be seated next to him and work with him. Those were some very good days that we had together. And so today, Mr. Chairman, to this august body, thank you for the privilege to be able to come and do the invocation. So we'll stand now for the prayer and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. We're always reminded of what your word tells us, and that is to acknowledge you in all of our ways, and you with good direction to our path. Today, our Father, as we come to say thank you for, number one, such a beautiful day and for a great nation and a great country. Thank you for these United States of America. Thank you for what she stands for, justice and equality for all. And we pray today you'll continue to bless this nation, bless the leadership of this nation, not only of this nation, but we pray for our mayor, that you'll bless her and give her wisdom as she leads this great city. And then we pray for this city council that has so many important decisions to make, and I pray that you'll guide them, give them the wisdom that they need, give them the spirit of agreement and unity as they move forward in making tough decisions for the citizens of this community. Thank you for each of them, for the sacrifices that they have made to become elected leaders of this great city. And we ask your blessings upon them today. And then, God, we thank you for all those who partake in this meeting. I pray it'll be a meeting that's in order. I pray that it'll be a meeting that's together. I pray that it'll be a meeting, God, that people can come and get things done and accomplish. Thank you today. And we give your name glory and praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of
Pledge
America,
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Dingfelder. Here. Citro. Here. Vieira. Miranda. And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. Mr. Shelby, please. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, and good morning, members of Tampa City Council and the public. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. As the chair stated, we are here at the 9 o'clock meeting on November 4th for the regular meeting of City Council, which is being conducted with a live in-person quorum of City Council present here in City Council chambers. However, in light of the COVID-19 government-issued health standards and guidance in effect, members of the public shall have the ability to participate virtually through video teleconferencing, referred to by Florida statutes and rules as Communications Media Technology, or CMT. And the citizens of Tampa are able to watch this meeting on cable TV channel 640, on Spectrum, Frontier channel 15, and on the internet live streaming at tampa.gov/livestream, one word. Now, the members of the public have alternative methods to communicate with City Council, and that is by internet or web, or written comments by email, or comments by U.S. mail. And all those instructions are available on the City Council's webpage at tampagov.net/City Council. Now, there is an opportunity to speak remotely during public comment with the use of CMT, and that's audio. And that is also available, the instructions are also available on the city's website and in the notice of this meeting, and which is included on the agenda. Now, for those who wish to use CMT, pre-registration is required, and again, those instructions are noted. Now, if those individuals who wish to communicate to City Council don't have communications media technology, they have the option of coming to City Council at Old City Hall on the second floor during the live and hybrid meeting when communication media technology is being made available to the public. Now, please note that in order to participate in quasi-judicial matters such as today's second readings, cell phones and smartphones are not compatible, as they will not allow the public to share their camera when connected. you must have access to, let's say, a tablet or a computer equipped with a camera and a microphone that will enable you to be seen, which is video and heard, by the City Council and other participants. And now comments specific to a public hearing, when it appears, will be heard on the agenda. And again, all comments have been made by email, have been distributed to City Council, and will be made part of today's hearing. And Mr. Chairman, in light of these rules, which will be formally adopted, I believe, next month when I present them to Council, if you could make a motion to waive the rules to adopt these hybrid meeting.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you.
Mr. Maniscalco has moved, Mr. Carlson has second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, Mr. Shelby, I know we have a lot of house cleaning for the approval of the agenda this morning. If we'll start, I know item number 5 needs to be removed. Mr. Carlson's guest couldn't make it, so a motion to remove.
Motion to move, yeah.
All right,
Second.
Motion from Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, I believe item number 9 be continued. Right, Madam Clerk?
That is a request of Councilmember Dingfelder, I believe.
All right.
And I
motion-
believe, I don't know whether there's anybody who wishes to speak to that, but that request, I understand, is the December 18th of 2021. Is that your understanding, Madam Clerk? Is that,
see
I
Mr.
think, believe, is that
Dingfelder.
Mr. Dingfelder behind you,
Mr.
Mr.
Dingfelder?
Mr. Miranda?
It'll be December 16th.
December 16th.
December 16th?
I move to continue this to December 16th.
Mr. Carlson says move, Mr. Maniscalco second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
Thank you.
We'll go down, Mr. Shelby. I know, I'm gonna skip to item number 88. I know we have a law firm that's here who's going to talk in reference and have a strict time. I'd like to move item number 88 to be after public comment.
I'd like to move item number 88 to after public comment.
Motion by Mr. Carlson. Second? Second, Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Item number 88 will come after public comment. All right, Mr. Shelby, let's go ahead and run through the agenda, sir. I believe we have a lot of items that are being pulled.
Madam Clerk, maybe you want to see if I believe we have item number, we took care of 5. Did we?
Number 1 that needs to be continued
Number 1, okay?
To win,
to the January
Correct.
18th accommodation.
I would like to move continue number 1 to January 18th commendation day.
Was it Mr. Carlson? Second, Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion granted.
Let's see.
All right. I believe we have,
Did we do,
We have 35, items 35 and 36 requesting to be heard under staff reports, as well as number 41.
41 will go with, is that 91 or
Correct.
94 or 91?
91.
91, okay, that's correct. All right. 5 and 36 staff reports.
so 91 is going to be pulled to be heard under staff reports
With
with
41.
With
41.
41.
Thank you.
And there's a request for a continuance for item number 94.
Yes, I'd like to move to continue 94 to January 13th, please.
All right, Mr. Carlson has moved. Mr. Maniscalco second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. One light of, on 94, I've had concerns from the chair of that budget committee. I would ask that all council members please talk to their representative of the budget committee. There've been a lot of absences and lack of quorums, and we need to make sure that if they're not going to be a part of that committee, which is a very serious committee, that they need to recuse themselves, and you need to appoint somebody else to that committee. Just
Mr.
for
Chairman.
FYI. Yes, sir, Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you. Number 9, you got my memo? and
Yes,
did-
sir.
Did we do anything with that?
Yes, sir, we've already continued that, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So we can hear to Again, 94, and have our people who you've appointed govern themselves accordingly. It'll be appreciated. Thank you.
And again, that date for number 94, Mr. Chairman, Madam Clerk?
Was it January, Mr. Carlson was asking for? January 13th,
Of 2022. Thank you.
2022.
Let's see, is there anything else, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have items number 95, 96, and 99 requesting a continuance from staff. However, I know Councilmember Dingfelder requested the staff to appear to speak on it, so not sure if he still needs them.
95, 96, and 97? 99, sorry.
Mr. Dingfelder, those three items have been asked for continuance. Are you good with that, sir?
Are they continuances to a time certain, or are they
Yes,
just?
sir. To December 16th, what I'm seeing here, sir,
On which ones?
99, 96, and 95, all dealing with the text amendment, dealing with the Carmen Street overlay, I believe.
95 is requesting a continuance to February 24th.
February
workshop.
24th?
To the workshop.
Workshop, to the workshop, okay.
And 96 and 99 is a request for December 16th or a date that council chooses.
Mr. Dingfelder?
I have no objection to that.
I would like to move, continue item number 95 to February, where was it, February 24th,
Yes.
2022.
Mr. Carlson, move that item. Second, please. Can I get a second on that? Second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
I'd like to move to continue item number 96 to December 16th.
Mr. Maniscalco has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
I'd like to move to continue item number 99 to December 16th.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, as far as the staff reports, staff to report, reference to item 92, is that person still needed? Mr. Carlson, Mr. Dingfelder?
The 92, I'd like to have a discussion,
All right, sir. Okay,
and 93.
and 93, okay. 94 is continued, 5 and 96 continue, 97 needs to appear, 98 need to appear. Who to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Martin Shelby, Council Attorney. With regard to the addendum, Madam Clerk, have you made notes of the substitutes for resolutions on the consent docket?
Yes, it's substitutes on the addendum as well as the final for,
Okay, and just so that council is aware, the ones on the addendum that don't appear on your final, that's a substitute, is number 37, is that correct? That's also being pulled, is that right?
items number 37 and 38 has substitute resolutions.
Okay,
In addition to item number 46 has a substitute resolution. 45 is a substitute agreement. The resolution is the same.
number
And
40,
45,
45 is a substitute agreement.
correct. The resolution is the same. The agreement has been substituted.
Okay, so we can make a motion to replace the agreement, to substitute the agreement, then move the resolution?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then number 83 has a substitute ordinance.
83.
When did these come in?
After the final.
Yeah.
Was it yesterday? Late yesterday?
So we have to make a note on number, that is a public hearing, and we'll bring that up again, but that's a substitute reso, and it's on the addendum. Okay. The title is on the addendum.
That doesn't give council much time
Okay,
to review when we get in that late. Mr. Shelby, that doesn't give council much time to review when we're getting in that late, that late in the evening.
Well, perhaps during the course of the hearing, we can discuss what the substitution is. And that can be explained.
All right, sir.
But I understand. Is that it, Madam Clerk?
That is it.
Motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Maniscalco moved it. Ms. Carter second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. We open for business, gentlemen. Item number 2, presentation. I think Mr. Miranda's down there. Morning, sir, again.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members. It's my pleasure again to be here with all of you and to recognize a company that's been here for 75 years, locally owned and locally operated by one of its founders and the family. The company's name is Tampa Steel Erecting Company. Let me just say that in recognition of the 75 years, the Tampa Steel Erecting Company, Florida's oldest structural steel fabricator, Bob Clark is the president, and he's a hands-on business owner. What does that mean? That means he's there daily. That means he knows what's going on. He has brought the company up to where it is today. It was founded by his father and still family owned by the family. Bob and his company are known internationally for recognition throughout the industry for successfully completed landmarks, known internationally and recognized throughout the industry for successful completed landmark nationally recognized project. Too numerous to mention today, but just give you a few of them. Epcot Spaceship, Earth. SeaWorld Samu Stadium. The Tampa, Florida Aquarium. Tampa 40-story Tampa City Center. And International Airport Airside F. Not only is this gentleman the president of the company, but he's also the executive director of the Miss Tampa pageant for over 25 years. This pageant is part of the Miss America Scholarship Program, and Bob has had a number of winners go on to be very successful in their careers. But let me say this. Not only is the award-winning fabrication project here locally, but Starro Drive in Boston, 48th Street, and the FDR Drive in New York, mile marker 159 in Garden State Parkway, New Jersey, Costco Bridge, Drawbridge in Portland, Maine, the Yellow Bridge in Atlanta, 17th Street over I-175 and I-85, and the recently Gateway to Dallas, the Twin Arch Bridges, 300 feet high, spanning 1,125 feet, a Santiago Calaterra project. Mr. Bob Clark is not related to Dick Clark or Petula Clark, let me say that. But he has name recognition throughout the whole United States. I'm ashamed to say that I'm jealous of him because I can't grow a mustache like he does. He must have special fertilizer to make it stand up like that on the edges like Duwinkle, one of the hillbillies that I know when I was a young kid. He is an individual of character. He is an individual that is sincere. He does his work with a smile. He goes to work every single day because he loves it. Ladies and gentlemen, our friend, not as old as the company, Bob Clark, Jr.
Thank you, Charlie. It's particularly meaningful for me that my friend Charlie Miranda would be the one that would give this to me because him and I have been friends for many years. And like Charlie, our company has reinvented itself many, many times. This award reminds me of one time whenever my daughter was Latin American Fiesta Queen in 1978. So a few years later, the Latin American Fiesta gave me an award. Of course, when I got up to accept my award, the first thing I had to tell them was that I spoke 2 languages, poor English and profanity, and that my biggest contribution to the Latin community is that I had been married to 2 Italians, and both of them were in attendance there that night. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that I'm Bob Clark. I'm in the iron and steel business. My sister irons and me and my son-in-law steel. The company is actually 46 years old. We skipped 75 for COVID. My dad got his occupational license on October the 1st, 1945. At the time, there was a local erector, R.J. Gould, Welding and Erecting, who was a local, connected. And so after my dad got his license, the Latin community were the ones who adopted him and started giving him work. And he did, quite a bit of work with the Latin community, and they helped him be able to grow his business and for us to be able to survive. Just one more thing to tell you is whenever he went in business, when he went in business in 45, I was 7 years old. So, Charlie, I am 83, so I was there when he got started, even though all I could do was miss him because he was working out of town most of the time. And anyhow, when I grew up in Tampa, the town was so small, the sign that said entering and leaving was on the same street. When we had a parade, there wasn't anybody to wave at. We didn't have a town drunk, so we all had to take turns. We had a dog catcher, and he eventually caught the dog. And so, but I do appreciate this recognition from the city of Tampa, and I could never give back to the city what it has done for me and my family. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Joe Citro, John Dingfelder, and all the other city council members.
Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure to present to Mr. Clark the combination presented to Bob Clark and his Tampa Steel. Not that he steals, it's just that that's the name of the company. Because he's a wonderful guy, and you heard the humor. He was on the circuit for a while for saying jokes, but they ran out of sponsors, so he had to drop the show. Thank you, Bob, for all you've done for many years and continue to do, you and your whole family. All of them, they're very nice people, and the work that you do with the Miss Tampa pageant, you're a great guy, and God bless you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Any council members? Mr. Vieira, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Clark, what a great honor it is to honor you, sir. Thank you, Councilman Miranda, for your very thoughtful words. You're just such a thoughtful individual with such a great sense of humor and whatnot. And I'm glad, by the way, I don't know if the camera, this book that you handed out by Paul Guzzo is, I look forward to reading this. It's such a, you're a very colorful person with a very witty, sharp sense of humor, and you're truly a character. You are a true Southern gentleman. You really are. You are a gentleman, or as we say in Spanish, un caballero. You're a gentleman, and you have the mustache to prove it. That's not a mustache. That's a man stash. That is a great mustache. You have that mustache would make Rhett Butler jealous. But thank you very much for all that you do for Tampa and for everybody here. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, sir, on your 75 years in business, you and your father. I went through the book that was written by the great Paul Guzzo briefly to read a little bit about your story, and it is truly the American dream. You are the American dream, your family, all your hard work, all your contributions, everything you've done in this city and for this city. We certainly appreciate you, and this commendation is very, very much deserved. Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Goss?
There's a lot that we could all say about you, but just to say something slightly different than my colleague, Ms. Miranda, I think communities are defined by their selfless leaders and the way people are welcomed into a community. And I returned to Tampa in 1994, and there were two people in particular who welcomed me and showed me around and networked me and helped me plug back in. One of them was Guy King, who's no longer with us, but the other was Bob Clark. And you probably don't remember this. Shannon Edge took us to the Sea Breeze for lunch, and that was my first introduction to you. I had no idea who you were. I was 26 years old. You had no idea who I was. And I think it's indicative of the kind of leadership and thoughtfulness that it doesn't matter to you who somebody is or what their title is or where they come from. You've always welcomed people to Tampa, and our community is stronger if people get networked faster, if they meet people faster, and if they find ways to help better. And your lunches on Friday help people network, and it's thoughtful the way you put it together. And a lot of people network because it helps with business development, but your business is national and outside of our market. And what you do personally to help bring people together is so thoughtful and important for our community, and I want to thank you. The other thing is that the book talks about your whole family, and one of the saddest days was when you had to take your brother out of the line that you use, and we just want to make sure we think of him and all your relatives who helped build the business. And finally, I know you're not in this business anymore, but I go to Epcot and Disney regularly, and every time I remind my kids of how your company helped or built Spaceship Earth, and I also showed them the picture of you standing on top of it, which I never would do. I would be too afraid. So anyway, thank you for your friendship and mentorship for hundreds and hundreds of people in our community. Without you, our community would not be as successful and welcoming as it is. Thank you.
Mr. Citro?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Bob, my friend, you've helped build Tampa, but through your philanthropic contributions, you've helped lift Tampa up. I thank you for being my friend, and I thank you, more importantly, for being a friend to Tampa. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Dingfelder?
You're getting it from all sides, Bob.
Yes.
At Rotary, Joe and I have to suffer with Bob's jokes regularly every week, and Charlie, you should have known better than to give this man a microphone, But anyway, no, he's a great guy. He's a tremendous asset to the community. I've enjoyed many of those Friday lunches, meeting people that I otherwise never would meet, and I can't say enough about you, Bob. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Well, Mr. Clark, I didn't know you. And sometimes I always tell people in this council, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. See this wonderful book here, I'm going to read it. I didn't know about Epcot, didn't know about some of the buildings. So it's great that we have you here, so the folks that are listening will know that we have a Tampa native who helped structure Florida, and is nationally known for a lot of the work you've done. So I say thank you to you and your family for the work you've done, and God bless you.
Thank you, council members. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, item number 3, Mr. Dingfelder, we have a retirement.
You got your posse, Carol? So they can just circle in around. Come on.
We do have a posse here.
We do have a posse.
Come on up.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Are we ready?
We're ready, sir.
Okay. So it's my pleasure and honor to really with sadness to give a commendation to Randy Goers because he's leaving and he deserves to move on after 30 years with the city and of great work, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But on a personal side, we're all going to miss him, and you can see behind me I have Carol and her team, many of which have worked with Randy for many, many years, and they're all here to be supportive. Anyway, Randy, I'll go ahead and read this commendation, and you can give a rebuttal. I know you didn't get to practice many jokes to compete with Bob Clark, but anyway, here we go. This commendation is presented to Randy Goers in appreciation of his work in shaping the city of Tampa. Since October 1986, Randy has worked to make the city of Tampa more livable and sustainable. His innovative work has been instrumental in the development of many of Tampa's contemporary and iconic landmarks, including the Riverwalk, the Convention Center, the Florida Aquarium, and the Channel District. Randy's hard work downtown led to prolific residential development all over downtown as well as the waterfront. Randy's contributed to this city's future for more than 30 years, and his most recent work will lay the groundwork for Tampa's future for generations to come. As the city's needs have changed, Randy's skills and contributions have evolved as well. He started out in the Strategic Planning and Technology Department. I do remember that department. As an urban planner 2, and progressed into the roles of urban planner 3, planning manager, urban planning coordinator, and in his current position as city planning director. No matter what his role was, Randy has always been an exceptional talent, a team player, and a valued advisor to dozens of council members and 5 mayors, starting with Sandy Friedman. Randy has left an indelible mark on this city and has changed it for the better. We're grateful for his dedication, and we're proud to honor him today. With pleasure and gratitude, we present this commendation on the 4th day of November, 2021. Congratulations, Randy.
Thanks, John, and thank you, members of council. 35 years ago, I came to Tampa, much like many other people, to start a new life. The community of Tampa welcomed me in and made me part of the community. City government also welcomed me in as well. As John mentioned, I worked for 5 mayors, starting with Sandy Friedman, Dick Greco, Bam Iorio, Bob Buckhorn, and now Jane Castor. And with each administration, there was always an organizational change, and I found myself tasked to do something new, learn something new, and to contribute in a different way. So those 5 mayors helped me become a better planner and a better manager over those years. I also had the good fortune of working with, as John also mentioned, dozens of councils, and each council was very different, but the number of dedicated community leaders that I worked with was incredible. I think back to my first council meeting, it was led by Tom Van, with that big white cowboy hat or a Panama hat. I can't remember which one it was, but there was others like Lee Duncan, Joe Greco, Eddie Caballero, Reverend Tom Scott, and Perry Harvey Jr., just a wealth of individuals. And my sole desire in working with them was to be able to give them a perspective or the information to allow them to make the decision they felt comfortable with. I also want to call out a few individuals that were key and instrumental in bringing me forward. The first 2 is Roger Whaling and Wilson Stair. They hired me. Pretty much I walked off the street and they hired me very shortly, and we formed the urban design team, which created the first downtown plan and the Channel District plan and the urban design function. And it was a much different deal back in 1986 when planning really wasn't appreciated and urban design wasn't even recognized as a viable option in long-term planning. But we moved on, we did some really incredible things. And then another individual, Rick Smith, who followed Roger Whaling, he took over and created a new department called the Planning and Management Department. And we were tasked to do a variety of different projects. And it was almost like going to the ball game and playing home run derby, because everything that we did, the idea was to do it big, hit a home run, and move on to the next project. And there were just a lot of different things I learned in terms of moving the city forward. I also want to thank Carol Post, sort of mixing some of the old contacts with the new contacts. My plans to retire were set last year, as Carol was set the goal of creating the planning department. She came to me with the proposal, and I just didn't. Was very apprehensive about leading the department and then leaving within a year. And she basically said, "Don't worry about it. You know, stay as long as you like. You know what your personal plans are. We respect that. But stay 1 year, stay 10 years, stay whatever you can. But build the department up and get it moving." And that was my sole task this year. I have a great team. It's small. There's only 5 of us, but they're very dedicated. They're very professional. They have a lot of key qualities and abilities to help advise you and lead the city forward. I would just ask that you give them about 90 days to sort of adjust to the new organization, and then feel free to hit them hard afterwards, because they'll be able to withstand it and they'll be able to come back with that as well. There's all kinds of other people to thank, the community as well. There's been great community leaders, some very dedicated people in their neighborhoods that are working hard to make Tampa a better place, and I really enjoyed doing that. So after 35 years, I find myself in a slightly similar situation as it was when I arrived, and that is I'm about ready to start a new life. But this one is a life where I am now, where I call Tampa home, and I call many of the people, especially those behind me, friends, and I look forward to being part of the community and watching the city evolve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. I forgot to mention, Mr. Chairman, when I met my wife 27 years ago, and she was living on San Carlos Street, this guy right here, Randy Goers, was living across the street in an apartment building, and she knew him before I did, and we've been good friends ever since. But anyway, Mr. Chairman, if anybody has anything to say, we welcome those words.
Ms. Maniscalco, you're recognized.
Thank you very much for all your years of service. We're certainly going to miss you. You lead and work with a wonderful team, so many people that are everyone that's standing behind you. You keep this city working and moving forward. You're there to answer our questions. You're there to keep us straight, make sure that we do the right thing. You know, some people are irreplaceable. I think you're one of those individuals because you've dedicated so many years, worked under so many mayors, seen so many different city council bodies change over time, but still here you are with your leadership, and we're moving forward, and we're doing well. We're doing great as a city. So thank you for that, and enjoy not just your retirement, whatever direction you choose to take now. You're young, you have a long life ahead, and just have fun. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, recognize, sir.
Yeah, thank you to Mayor Castor to Carol Post for taking focus on planning. I think it's really important to do more planning in the city. And Randy, I said this last week or a couple weeks ago, but thanks again for doing kind of 10 years worth of work in the last 6 months. You took on multiple projects at the same time and showed great leadership and engaged the community, and we'll all be forever thankful because the work you did is putting us on a path to solve large problems within our neighborhoods and communities, and I think you have set us up to be very successful in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Citro, you recognize.
Mr. Goers, your name is going to always be remembered with the city of Tampa. Randy, I thank you for making history with this city and moving it forward at a time when we really need it. You're leaving us with a big bang, and I thank you for that. Thank you, Randy.
Mr. Moran?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Randy, as you well know, you just spoke of the many people, many mayors you work with, and many council members. And you had to learn one thing. Everyone's got a different personality. Everyone speaks, some louder, some softer. But the main goal was what you directed, that's to make the city better. And it takes many, many people to make something to go forward. And thank you for your leadership and bringing the city from that time to the day where it's at. I appreciate it very much, sir. Have a nice and healthy retirement.
Well, Mr. Goers, 30 years is a long time to be at a job. But what I can tell you, a person who has retired, the first week is what I figure the worst week. 'Cause I can remember my first day. I got up, I thought I was late, opened the door, I said, somebody stole my police car. And that week was like, I wake up, I don't work anymore. So I would say to you, sir, enjoy yourself. 30 years is a long time. Don't look back and just enjoy yourself. Life is too short, so you make sure you enjoy yourself. God bless you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll go to item number 4. Mr. Vera, I'm sure he's already down there chit-chatting. There he is. On again, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It's my great pleasure here to introduce the CEO of Tampa Bay Thrives, Carrie Zeiss. Tampa Bay Thrives is a great organization with a cause that's close to my heart, and I know close to the heart of virtually everybody in the city of Tampa and on City Council. Tampa Bay Thrives was a recently founded organization, founded in 2019 by 30 community leaders who had a vision for helping people in our region have better outcomes under mental health. Serendipitous to have this organization founded just before the onset of COVID, when mental health has been challenged in so many ways. This cross-sector coalition includes 4 area hospitals, payers, schools, public safety, community organizations, employers, as well as local government, all working together to make it easier to navigate the mental health system, increase access to mental health, and decrease the stigma associated with seeking help for mental health challenges. This led to the launch of Let's Talk Tampa Bay, a free, confidential, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week open mental health support line, which launched in July of the last year for residents of Hillsborough County and Pasco areas. And I thought this was such an important community tool that I wanted to invite Carrie over here to speak on it. So Carrie, if you'd like to come up and speak, you may. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Tampa Bay Thrives and why we were founded. I wanted to start with a couple of statistics. 1 in 5 individuals in Tampa Bay and West Central Florida is suffering from mental illness, and 1 in 14 have a substance use disorder. Making that a more complicated situation, our great state ranks 40th in terms of access to behavioral health care. These are the questions that face these great leaders in 2019 when they decided to work together to form an independent nonprofit to work between them to help increase mental health outcomes at the community level. We started in earnest in 2020, and the pandemic locked us down very quickly, but I will say that bar none, every single member of my coalition actually leaned in, despite the fact that they were busy mobilizing to deal with the pandemic. They participated in work groups, and we did a design session, which led us to the Let's Talk solution. Let's Talk is a 24/7 a free, confidential mental health support line. It is meant to help individuals in need who are trying to get past that navigation issue. So when you start to feel poorly, or someone that you care about does, it's a first stop if you want to talk to someone, to problem solve, and to get referrals to local providers who can help you feel better. This is entirely free to any individual living within Hillsborough, Pasco County. And our goal is to have this be the first stop and the next to connect to urgent care. In addition, the Let's Talk platform, counselors, you will see I gave you some materials. It's really meant to destigmatize asking for help. We have all suffered over the last 18 months, and it really needs to be the message that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to not feel great. It is entirely normal to move between a spectrum of struggling to thriving, and we want to help make sure that everyone in our community has access to do that, regardless of insurance and regardless of their ability to get to help.
Well, Mr. Any questions, any council members? Mr. Maniscalco, you recognize, sir.
Thank you very much for coming to visit us today and talk about Tampa Bay Thrives. It's been very, very difficult with this. I mean, life is difficult in general, but this pandemic, these last 18 plus months, has done a lot of damage to the psychological health and well-being of so many people. 2 people that I knew, I wasn't close to, but committed suicide last week. And I don't know the reasons why. It could be the pandemic, could be other things, but when you hear these stories and when you see the families suffering because they're left to pick up the pieces, you wonder. There's a lot of unanswered questions. And going through this packet here, one of the first cards that you have your business card with the number that's 833-DIAL-111, which is open to anybody and it's free and confidential. But the first card says, it's okay to not be okay. And that's something that everybody needs to know. It's okay to hurt, to feel depressed, to feel down, to feel, like you're struggling, but it's okay to reach out for help. And what you do and so many other organizations do is you tell people that it's okay. You offer assistance. You say, there's an ear, there's someone that will pick up the phone and listen and help you through the process. Maybe it's not perfect, but there is hope. And that's what we need to understand, that there is hope. It's never too late. It's never the end. And there's always somebody there willing to help and willing to listen. So I thank you for being here in the community. I thank you for offering your services because there are a lot of people suffering, and a lot of people suffer in silence. And people that we think, they have everything together and their life is perfect. You don't know what happens behind closed doors. You don't know what's going on in their mind. But as long as they know that there's someone there, that there's an organization, and that there's hope and that there's help, and that it's okay to ask for that, it's okay to reach out, I think we make this community a better place. So thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Vieira and young lady, we look at a lot of things, and the first thing that caught my eye was your little card here. And I'm going to ask you to have someone from your office bring me some of these cards. I've already got 3 people in mind that I just talked to in recent days, and I think this will help them. You got a young person on there. Some of the things you have on there is a newer concept than most of your mental health literature that you mostly see. It's more friendly, you could say, and especially with the things that are going on with young people's lives. And I look at mental health, but I also look at you have substance abuse on there too. And not necessarily people are doing particular drugs, but a lot of young people are doing a lot of alcohol these days. And so, I've come across some few people, and if your office could just get me a few of these cards so I can be able to hand out, take to some of our neighborhood associations, because I know a lot of those families deal with those issues, and we can definitely get the word out to those folks. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. We have posters, bilingual posters, cards, all of the materials that you see are available in both English and Spanish. So
Great.
I would be happy to distribute those to anyone who would like to share them.
I'm sorry, I missed Mr. Miranda. Sorry,
Thank
sir.
you. Carrie, if I may call you Carrie, I don't know if it's a difference in society or maybe way back, see, I just turned 18, which is really backwards. But what I'm trying to say is that when we were growing up, everybody seemed happy. There were very few transportation issues because no one can afford transportation, like an automobile. The buses were full because that's what you can afford. You worked in the area in which you lived, and there was, you can walk home for lunch, you can go back to work. And the school system, there was really no buses then. You had to walk to school, and hardly anyone was late. Now the school bus is late. So there's a lot of different things that bring pressure on the people. And I don't know, maybe at that time it was never exposed to what the problems, social issues were. But now it seems to me that every day you have more and more social issues, and not only in this country, throughout the world. So I don't know if it's the pressure of life or the things that you try to attain that you can't. There's no understanding as to one reason as to why, as you well know. So I want to thank you and your organization for trying to bring it out. You bring out things, and that's when the public realizes that there is a problem. And thank you to our organization for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vieira, and again, thank you, young lady, for coming this morning.
Thank you.
All right, what do we have next? Item number 6, Miss, our clerk has some items for us this morning. Huh? Is that right, Madam Deputy Clerk? Here she comes.
Good morning, Council. Shirley Foxnow, City Clerk. I'm here regarding item 6, 7, and 8. The first one is the Planning Commission. The individuals want to be reappointed, and Marino Michael Lewis is the first one.
Good morning, City Council members. My name is Michael Marino. I live in South Tampa, and I'm seeking reappointment to the Planning Commission, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr.
Move to approve.
All right, Mr. Miranda has moved, Mr. Maniscalco second. All in favor? We need a roll call on that, Mr. Sheldon?
If you don't mind, council, please. And also as part of the motion, if you could also ask the legal department to prepare the resolution for the outside board appointment and bring
So
that
moved,
back.
Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Miranda has moved it, Mr. Citro has seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira. Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote.
Mr. Carlson, recognized.
Yeah, I just want to say Mike who was just before us briefly, he's been very involved in planning and transportation for a long time despite his age. And he's one of the real thought leaders in our community. I'm glad that he's stepping up to continue to do this. He has been quietly leading in a lot of ways behind the scenes. Thank you.
All right. Morning.
Good morning, Council. I'm Karen Kress, and I have been proud to serve and represent our city for the last 4 years, along with Mr. Marino on the Planning Commission. I'm here to ask for another 4 years. The staff has been stellar, both on the City of Tampa and the Planning Commission end. I have learned a lot and continue to do so. I am also an urban planner in my day job at the Tampa Downtown Partnership. I'm dedicated to this city and ask for your endorsement. Thank you.
I move the reappointment for Ms. Kress.
Citro has moved it. Citro
With
has
the
moved
resolution.
it. Mr. Miranda has seconded. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco. Vieira. Citro.
Yes.
Miranda. Dingfelder.
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Kress, for all you do in the community.
Carlson.
Yes, and I just say Karen is also one of the quiet leaders who have a big vision for our community. I'm so thankful that she's stepping up to do this.
And Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote.
Sister, I saw your hand. You have something to say, sir?
I was just going to thank Ms. Karen Kress for all she has done over the years with this city, not only with the downtown partnership, but throughout the city of Tampa. Ms. Kress, thank you very much for all you do.
All right. All right. Item number 7.
Shirley Fox Snow, City Clerk. The next board is the BLC Barrio Latino Commission. Mr. Levi Wynn. He sent you a statement, and he will not be here today.
All right.
He's asking for a reappointment.
All right. Mr. Maniscalco moved it. Mr. Miranda seconded. Mrs. Trevor, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have prepared a reso for that, and that would be prepared for your signature, so you can just move that resolution.
All right. Mr. Maniscalco, you're going to move both items, sir? Mr. Miranda? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Vieira,
I'm so sorry, I just walked in.
Barrow Latino reappointment, sir.
I'll trust you guys, yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
and Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right. Item number 8.
Shirley Fox Snow, City Clerk. We're considering Architectural Review Commission, and Ms. Shauna Board is here.
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
You recognized?
Yes, Ms. Boyd. Hi, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Ms. Boyd has served as an alternate, and her term has expired, and she's here to seek reappointment, and there are openings on the board itself. And I confirmed this morning with Attorney Kamaria Pettis-Mackel that she can be, if it's council's pleasure, be appointed as a regular member. And if she's willing to do that, you might inquire, and if that's the case, I'll prepare that resolution and bring
Ms.
it back
Boyd,
to
are you willing
council.
to do that?
I am.
I'll move the appointment with resolution. Second.
All right. Mr. Citro has moved it. Mr. Miranda has seconded. Roll call vote.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Would you like to say anything, young lady?
No, thank you very much.
All right.
Mr.
we
Chair,
thank
if
you.
I may,
You're recognized?
you're one of those special type of people that is willing to do the time, make the effort, learn the craft, and go from being an alternate to a permanent fixture. I thank you on your diligence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. All right. With that magical hour, public comment.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
You're recognized?
are you aware of the number of public speakers downstairs? Have you been informed?
No, I have not been informed, sir.
I understand, as of last count, there were 11 public speakers, public comment downstairs.
All right. There are 11. How many we have registered? All right. All right. Well, let's get started. All right. Public comment, second floor. Mr. Shelby, I apologize. I wasn't from. I didn't look down. Yes, sir. I saw it on a piece of paper here. Sorry about that, sir.
Yes, right here. No worry.
Oh, no, it's not something for them.
I'm sorry?
It's just for me to read.
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Headland. I reside at 1023 East 17th Avenue, and I am here to speak today on item number 97. I moved to the VME Board neighborhood back in 2000. At that time, there was not the concentration of offenders and predators in my East Tampa community that we see today. Since then, hundreds, if not thousands, hundreds of offenders have been deliberately funneled into our community, much to the financial benefit of just a few property owners and much to the perceived convenience of TPD. but unfortunately to the huge detriment of the community, to the detriment of the economic and commercial corridor that is Nebraska Avenue, to the detriment of our community's public safety, to the historic structures that have been chopped up to house more than 30 individuals each, and to the detriment of an at-risk population who are now warehoused in substandard bunk rooms. As of this morning, there are 103 offenders and predators living within a half a mile of my home. More than 60 of those folks are living in just 3 single structures, all on a single block of Nebraska Avenue. This number does not include those folks that are transient, that don't have a home. I asked council today, would that be okay 1 block from your house? Would you be okay letting your teenager walk to play basketball or futsal 2 blocks from your house when you know they have to pass by there? Would you be okay sending your 7-year-old to her elementary school bus stop that is literally located in front of these houses? As you'll hear later this afternoon from the TPD report, there has been a very systematic and deliberate release of individuals to just 3 locations in the city. Nebraska Avenue, VM Ybor is one of those locations. So today I am asking council to address this very real public safety issue, the issue that's inherent in funneling an at-risk population in extremely high densities to just a handful of areas within city limits. I am asking that the city address the very real life safety concerns of cramming 25, maybe 30 individuals in a single 3,000 square foot historic structure. I'm asking the city to carefully evaluate the economic impact of this sort of systemic practice on a neighborhood and the future economic development of the East Tampa community. I'm asking you to end this deliberate clustering of predatory people in just certain areas of Tampa. Please give priority to the community, to our business owners, to our stakeholders that are all affected by this clustering and the gross overcrowding in these rooming houses. Please put the safety and welfare of everyone above the profits and convenience of just a few. Thank you.
Thank you.
Montez Knott, Tampa, Florida. I want to start off by saying uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. And we say we as African people should always be thinking about our freedom. We should always look out and be alert. You always have to be sensitive to what's said, what's done around you, who's saying it, how they're saying it, just their demeanor, everything else. Someone's getting an award up here this morning and they don't like you to identify anybody in city council. You got to speak to city council as a whole because they're like kings and queens. You just can't address them like that. All right, they're like governors in a certain way in the old days. But someone say someone is a true Southern gentleman. That offends African people. Hey, can they hold my time up, please? Hey, it's interesting can you hold my time, please? It's interesting how you guys have cops down here to monitor what people say, but you don't have any cops to control what goes on out when people come to a meeting that people can't be quiet for a few minutes. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. That's what y'all need to get under control. Now, if they're out there protesting, that's fine. But if people are speaking and other individuals are on the phone or running their mouth, that's disrespectful. If they're officially protesting, that's 100% okay. That's what it's all about. But I'm hearing a full conversation going on out there.
If there's any staff down there, let's make sure that we abide by the rules. There are signs inside of that room asking that there be no conversation and quiet inside. If you need to go talk or conversate, you need to leave the room so the speakers can be able to talk to council members. Thank you. You may continue, sir.
Thank you. But the fact of the matter is someone this morning talked about a true Southern gentleman. That's insulting to African people, a true Southern gentleman, and then they talk about Red Butler. Gone with the Wind. That's insulting to African people. That reminds us of slavery. It's traumatizing the African people. A true Southern gentleman is a slave owner. That's what that is. But the fact of the matter is, when last week I spoke on no representation and no power inside our communities. And someone came to the defense of someone saying, hey, that's a good person, that's whatever, whatever. No, all black politicians that you see internationally, they're puppets, nothing more, nothing less. They don't speak of anything that's representative of the aspiration of people or African people in particular. And that's what we've had in this city. We have major issues. The major issue for African people is reparations. White people can't get 400 years of free labor free. They cannot get that and get away with it. So African politicians have to talk about reparations and the things that is just indicative of African people moving forward instead of us living in this squalor. Like this lady's talking about so many pedophiles and sex offenders living in a certain area. That's concentrated more than likely inside the African community. We have to move above that. We have to move above that. We have to talk about black power. Our leaders, our politicians, our black representatives, our black community leaders have to talk about black power, reparations, nuclear weapon in the hands of a black bomb to represent African people, and just our ambitions. That's what we have to talk about. And when I speak of puppetism, I don't have to bite my tongue. I don't have to do it. Our representatives talking about nonsense, about roundabouts, about parks, about rec centers, about ignorant stuff, and 400 years of labor, free labor on the table, and nobody's talking about that. Reparations, that's what we African people have to talk about.
Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Hi, Kelly Grimsdale, 2701 North 9th Street. I am here again before City Council regarding the clustering of sexually predatory people in Via Ybor. As of this morning, I have 81 registered within 1/4 mile of my house and 100 within a half mile. There is no other area in the city or county with this level of concentration, and I believe that if we didn't bring this to your attention, no one in the city would be looking out for our neighborhood. Via Ybor needs some relief, and I ask all of you to put yourselves in our shoes. Based on the total number of these individuals in the county, the concentration in our area is essentially 243 sexually predatory people in just 1 square mile. I know that TPD is going to deliver their report to you later today and explain how these individuals can be monitored more easily when located in one area. TPD is also going to tell you that if it weren't for the overstuffed rooming houses, which are currently housing 52 of these individuals, that these people would be homeless. We now have 7 sexually predatory people in Via Ybor listed as being transient. And guess what? Most, if not all, were once residents in those rooming houses. TPD is also going to report that there has not been an increase in Via Ybor. We've seen about a 20% increase of these individuals in just the last few months. We've never had the numbers be so high. I just learned that the offenders that are on conditional release may not live within 1,000 feet of a school bus. There is an elementary school bus stop located 81 feet from these rooming houses. How do we know what restrictions apply to each sexually predatory individual, and is this particular restriction currently being overlooked? Via Ybor is not a low-rent neighborhood, and we have families, the elderly, and children just like every other neighborhood. Why is our neighborhood being overburdened with many of the city's at-risk population? Where is our chance to thrive just like every other neighborhood in the urban core? Many of our residents have lived in Via Ybor way before the rooming houses became established in 2009 and 2010, and before Trinity Cafe relocated in 2013. These events were forced upon us and did not grow organically from within. All I have personally ever asked is that the city's ordinance be enforced equitably. I am asking for the city to enforce the county's existing anti-clustering ordinance. If there are particular issues with the city utilizing this ordinance, then I'm confident that the lawyers for the city and the county can get the verbiage worked out. If this is not an option, then I am asking for the council to create an anti-clustering ordinance to be enforced within the city boundaries. And at the very least, I am asking for the council to call on the current fire marshal to put his own stamp of approval on how many people may safely be housed in 3,200 square feet. Per the fire code, the limit would be 16, not the 30 per building that past Fire Marshal Milt Jenkins arbitrarily approved back in 2015. Again, I am asking for relief for our neighborhood and the opportunity to be safe and to thrive. And like I've said before, if you housed 52
Thank you,
bank
ma'am.
robbers together, what do you think they would learn from each other? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Giusti. I already sent a letter, but I felt like I had to come here and speak today because this is an issue that it really makes me passionate about. When I moved to VME War, I wasn't shocked about the cluster of sexual predators in the area because I know it's Tampa, it's more populate dense. What I was truly shocked about was that there is an ordinance in place for for preventing this from happening, and it's not being enforced. And I was truly shocked to, because I read the news articles and I did some research on this, and I was truly shocked to learn that law enforcement says that they're just gonna keep the status quo and no enforce it. And that for me, that is truly shocking, and it's kinda shameful to hear that. So I understand the statistics, the studies, all of that. I read all of that, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about there is a law in place and it should be enforced. Why is it not being enforced? I'm here to talk about people that are currently profiting from overflowing room and houses that are not in the best conditions. We just heard that there's like 30 people just living in one of them, and against fire building code, by the way. I'm here to talk about disproportionate number of convicted felons in our location compared to other locations. Would this be acceptable in South Tampa? Will this be acceptable in Davis Island? Will this be acceptable in any more affluent communities? I think not, and that's why this status quo, I'm against it, because when I became a citizen of this great country, which I'm grateful for every day, I was so proud that this country has so many rights and treats everybody equally, and I feel like we're not being treated equally. They're just concentrating all these people there because they think, oh yes, it's easier for them to control them, but at what cost? It does affect our society, it does affect our community that is already being affected by so many homeless that we have over there, which, by the way, is not made better by the fact that there's a homeless cafe right there. There's also drug issues everywhere over there. We all know that the Sunoco gas station, there's a lot of drug activity there. So how can they tell me to stay quiet, keep the status quo, when I know this issue of the sex offenders cluster there, it's going to interact with all the other issues, and it's just going to detriment our community. It's going to detriment the value of the properties. It's going to detriment the morale. It's making people afraid. It makes me afraid. I'm a young woman living by myself with just my dog, and learning this, and learning not only that it's happening, but that they allow it to happen, it makes me really upset. And that's why I came here to speak. I understand that these methods might not be effective. Maybe some people say this law is really not as effective. Well, I'm
Thank
sure
you,
they
ma'am.
are.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Grimsdale. I live at 2701 North 9th Street. This is in regards to item 97. I've lived in the VME Ybor City for 14 years, and I'm well aware of the issues and that surround the housing of sexual predators and the difficulties and the complicated structure that leads to the clustering in the urban and perceived low-income areas. It's not an easy task, but one that needs to be addressed that encompasses the growth or the lack of growth in the Nebraska corridor for our businesses, the growth and safety of our community, the need to have some rewriting of the laws that are on our books. And we need to take a look at the fire codes and the enforcement or the lack of enforcement of the fire codes. If you get 80 builders in a group, you're going to get them talking about building. You get 80 sex offenders in a group, what are they going to talk about? I have 80 of these people that live in a quarter mile of my house. 80 is just ridiculous, and it's totally unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having us here today. I live at 1210 East 26th Avenue. I've been there for
Can you
2.5 years.
state your name for us, sir?
Better?
You can state your name for us?
Oh, Jeff Roidt. I'm sorry. Last name is spelled R-O-I-D-T.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I've been in the neighborhood for about 2.5 years. 6 months to a year in, it was frustrating, kind of irritating at the, lack of effort, both with the sexual predatory people as well as the homeless. There was a meeting, I think it was about this time last year, I think September 2020, and it was all but guaranteed that we'd be seeing a shelter built on the east side by February 2021. And I was really excited, and I was blindly optimistic. I don't think anything's been done. I feel like it's been just disrespectful, the lack of effort that's been put in on our community. So please put some effort in. The community needs it. It's a great neighborhood. There's great people. There's families. There's children. We just need some effort. Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Council. Barry O'Connor with McDitton's Irish Pub and a member of the Soho Business Alliance. Just here to speak in reference to item number 75 on today's agenda. We were never notified or asked to speak or...
Hold on one second, sir.
Is that a public hearing? Okay. All right.
75.
All right. Sir, 75, it's a hearing for that today. So when we get to that item, you can speak at that time on 75. But as of right now, that's a hearing for a vote today. So
Okay. I was just asked to speak now, so...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning. Graham Soa, 1412 East Frierson Avenue. I think one of the best ways to tell that you're doing okay in life is when you have a bunch of time to worry about your neighbors. And it seems that with all the investment and growth and championship titles in Tampa, our city council has recently found time to debate a lot about foreign policy. I guess I should consider this an unexpected bonus for my property taxes. Unfortunately, on the issue of Cuba, I think the City Council has failed to recognize that their worthy and genuine support of political freedom on the island is coming at the expense of growing radicalization in the community they were elected to serve. Well before our council passed a resolution on the matter of far right-wing Cuban-American social media influencers were sending buses to Washington to participate in what became the January 6th insurrection on our capital. Just before that, a more violent attack was taken out on the Cuban embassy in Washington, D.C. An individual from Miami unleashed 32 bullets into the windows and the facade of a foreign embassy in our nation's capital. In Tampa, we saw what were supposed to be peaceful protests to support the Cuban people devolve into several days of hours-long blockades of Dale Mabry and Columbus Avenue with no regard to citizens' rights for movement, much less response times to emergency vehicles during a pandemic. If that was not enough, on July 12th, 2 Tampa Police Department and 1 Florida State Highway Patrol officers were attacked by protesters as they attempted to block Highway 275. Just last month, what should have been a civil activity at the Tampa Theater to view a documentary about Cuba turned into a public spectacle of political harassment as theatergoers were chased away by people with bullhorns calling them Nazis. At the same time, the same treatment or worse awaited people leaving the theater from all exits as an obvious campaign of intimidation was organized well before the event took place. The president of the Tiger Bay Club, Tom Scherberger, stated that in 40 years of club history, never have any of their events been so degraded by threats of violence, interruptions, and plans to destroy the democratic principle of civil debate. If this city council is going to consider supporting freedom of expression and political speech in Cuba, they should first ensure that the same is available to the citizens of Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You state your name so you can begin.
Hello, Council. My name's Daniel Cruz. I live in VME-Bor. I'm here for item 97. I was asked to come to speak about this. I've lived in the neighborhood at 905 East St. Clair for about 20-some years. I've raised 2 young men there. They're about 12 and 14 at this point. It's been exciting to say the least with the individuals we have in the area. We have the densely populated area of all the pedophiles in the boarding houses. We also have a huge homeless problem, and all that together is not really where you want to raise a family. All that came about after I moved into the neighborhood, and I see other families moving into the neighborhood having to deal with these same issues. We have rules in place that are not being enforced, and I'd like to ask all you gentlemen to please help us take care of the community at large. We certainly do our part as much as we can. We just ask that you do your jobs as well. Thank you.
No more public speaking at this time.
Thank you, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk? Ready when you are.
Good morning. The first speaker is going to be Stephanie Pointer. Stephanie, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good morning, gentlemen. I just want to ensure that everybody has their nice yellow and orange sheet from the Stop Overbuilding song, folks. That's for reference later. I'm not going to dig deep into that. I know that city staff had a memorandum. Thank you to the city councilman who forwarded it to us this weekend. We did not have it until Sunday, Halloween. So we decided that we would have our own sheet. The original document, the 14 items, was on red paper. And so we wanted to make sure this one was on yellow so that it wouldn't get eaten by the white paper monster. Ideally, we have seen some significant changes since we met with the mayor and city staff. And overall, I would say that it's a smiley face day. And we're really happy with a lot of the things that are moving forward. We were really kind of disappointed that we didn't have any input on the memorandum to start with. But overall, we're happy with it. And I want to point out, and I did not get my speech together this morning. I spoke with Ms. Post this morning as I was leaving, and she expressed to me that she thought that we were kind of getting to be redundant with the 14 items and some of the other stuff because these items are growing by themselves. They have taken on their own identity. I don't know that I'm ready to give up the 14 item list just because I think it's a good planning map for what we need down here. I'd like to see, this is kind of a feedback from me. I'd like to see We've had 3 developers come to us, and 3 developers told us that somebody, and I'm not going to name names, I'm just going to, it's generalities, that they were kind of told no, that it wasn't a good, that commercial couldn't go here. Or no, we don't want to talk about doing blah, 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 the things that are actually even on this sheet. We are looking for commercial development, we're looking for retail development, and we would like to see that supported outside of city council's chambers. But other than that, I mean, there's lots and lots of good stuff on here, and I don't want to thrash and trash. That's probably my biggest complaint for this. I would also like to say that for my folks, my friends down at the Hannah Street, they really haven't, I think they're excited about the city center moving down there, but I think they're really concerned about the what's it called, where the autos are repaired and stuff in there. I think that's going to put a lot of heavy equipment on a secondary street, which is also one of our concerns. So the Hannah Street project with them putting the garage down there. Other than that, y'all have a good day, and I'm sorry I'm so discombobulated today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next speaker is going to be Michael Randolph. Michael, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. So my name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. I want to start off by giving a shout out to Randy Gore. I met him like 18 years ago when I came to Tampa, and he's been nothing but good to West Tampa. Sorry to see you leave, but you've been a good man. And you know how the Wild Wild West is. You've sat at meeting for hours just to speak when you could have left. So you really have a commitment for the community. Thank you. And wherever you go, I know you're going to grow. Today, I'm here to talk about the West Tampa CDC Public Safety Initiative. We've been getting so many calls from community residents about crime, particularly violent crimes. So the West Tampa CDC Initiative is a 3-pronged approach. We focus on prevention, interventions, and deterrence. Now the focus is on the hardcore, repeat offenders, at-risk youth, and dealing with the school to pipeline prison situation. We're using what's known as a hip-hop approach to attract, educate, excite, and transform the hardcore. Now, this is based on lessons from around the country: Baltimore, Florida, Philly, Chicago, New York, New Jersey, and Cali. In Baltimore, they have this group just called Safe Neighborhood, in which former offenders go back to the street in order to solve beef. So people don't like to do snitching. So instead of, when you have a beef, you call these people, they come and they solve the beef. And it's out of Baltimore called State Streets. The other one is in Chicago, where you have former inmates come together to go back to the streets and save the neighborhood. In California, you got former gang members coming together to save the neighborhood. Our approach is focused on economic development as a strategy to remove barriers to increase hope in the community. We focus on 2 key components: mental health and substance abuse. Deal with these 2 things and you reduce the violence and the crime in the neighborhood, especially as it relates to PTCS. Because of being in the community of violence, a lot of people are suffering from PTCS. Now, just to close, I'm so very concerned because of the number of guns that are in the streets as a result of the stimulus checks. You remember everybody receiving their stimulus checks? What you don't know, and the police department will back me up, a lot of people in the streets, in the hood, they bought guns. We got more guns in our neighborhood now than any time before. Our strategy is to stop the killing by bringing together the community and using a national approach to stop the violence in Tampa and in the United States. Thank you so much. And again, Randy, thank you so much for what you did for West.
Next speaker is going to be Carol Ann Bennett. Carol, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
She there.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Bennett. I'm a lifelong resident of Tampa. First, I want to talk about item number 88, the economic development. I watched that entire hearing. I listened to everything everyone said. And then I went back on YouTube and I watched the entire thing all over again. Then I read the documents that Councilman Carlson submitted. And I've got to say, coming from a layperson, everything that Councilman Carlson wrote and said to me was what my mother would call horse sense. It was just reasonable, common sense ideas and requests and needs that should have been in there and should be in there. So, you know, I just want to voice my support for what Councilman Carlson asked for in that. The next thing I want to talk about is item number 92 and 93, that 14-item red sheet. You know, I was disappointed that the city didn't send the memos to us and schedule a short Zoom meeting. We need a conversation. We need dialogue. We need questions asked and answered. In March, Mayor Castor had a meeting with all of the SOG leaders. The 14-item red sheet presented at that meeting was a joint document. Stephanie and I got an email on Monday asking what we thought about items 92 and 93. And I know Stephanie and I bear an uncanny resemblance to Wonder Woman. We get that a lot. But all of the SOG leadership needs to be invited to discussions about SOG. And it can't be at the last minute. There are 5 neighborhood associations in SOG, and all 5 of those presidents have full-time jobs. Now, Randy did call a few of us yesterday, and I had a very good conversation with him. But 11th hour phone calls are frankly inefficient. And what we have today, what we're doing today is the city sends you some memos and you're like the middleman. It's like you're in the role of translator. The city talks to you and you ask us what we think. And then we talk to you and you ask the city what they think. It's like watching a tennis match. It's just inefficient. You know, everyone is ridiculously busy. Direct communication is way more productive. So, you know, I just want to say that, you know, I've been talking and we've all been talking with the city about communication forever, it seems like. And we started from the point that everybody agreed that the communication is very poor. And quite frankly, with some notable exceptions, it hasn't gotten any better. And I don't think it's from a lack of wanting to make it better. It's just a lack of not making it better. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Next speaker is going to be Timothy Keyports. Tim, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, City Council. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Can hear you.
Great. Tim Keyports, president of Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association. I reside at 402 East Idlewild Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33604. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I did attempt to reach out to each of the councilmen and submit a letter regarding the city center. But in addition, I just wanted to take a few minutes this morning to provide some additional color to the conversation. When I originally requested to speak on item 91, which will be coming up later today, the $101 million agreement between the city and DPR Construction for the city center at Hannah Avenue, when I was reviewing the agenda, the SIRE system was down for an extended period. And that is a problem for our citizens to be able to see what is on the agenda with all the additional attachments. Once the system returned, I was surprised to see that you have item 41 on your docket, which is a $165 million bond, which the majority will support construction of the new city center. So just a general question, why would council be presented a bond as item 41 ahead of discussion on item 91, which it directly supports? To item 91, our neighborhood is very excited, along with most of the other neighborhoods in that immediate area, that the city is planning to invest in our area. East Tampa has long been ignored, and bringing a $100 million crown jewel will be fantastic, and we look forward to it and welcome it. The renderings that were released to the public this Monday clearly show this to be a terrific addition. So kudos to the design team. We look forward to the ground opening. So in addition to the letter that was submitted to council, I have three main points that we have concerns with. Every public meeting regarding the center, traffic, sidewalks, intersection improvements, and Vision Zero issues have been the number one issue by far. With 500 additional employees and citizens utilizing this new center daily, we expect traffic to be a significant concern. The city has a traffic study underway with the first draft to be released later this month. However, we were told the public will not be allowed to see this draft, and that seems to be a problem. What if something gets missed? I'm sure there are experts looking at this, but nonetheless, we as the residents have insight that the city sometimes does not see. For example, we held a meeting this Tuesday with the developer for a new 285-unit apartment complex going in at Sly, Nebraska. Their traffic study is already complete.
Sir, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, I'm going to ask that you not make reference to any other item that is pending that will be coming perhaps before council, just to be
Yes, sir.
cautionary. Thank you.
All right, I'll move on. So clearly we have traffic coming into our area at a high rate. So again, we would just like to have an opportunity to comment on that draft study. The second thing, and then I'll end, is the inclusion of fleet services and repair center in this new facility. So the inclusion of a repair center right in the middle of a neighborhood does not make sense.
Thank you, Mr. Keepott.
All right, I will end there. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
The next speaker is going to be Jean Strawmeyer. Jean, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, y'all. Jean Strohmeyer here, president of Interbay South Gandy Civic Association, but lifelong resident of Tampa. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because oftentimes I have some technical issues depending on the laptop I'm using, and I'm out of town. Okay, so I also agree with number 88, the economic development. We need to support Mr. Councilman Carlson's agenda, if you will, to make that completely transparent, because we really need to know what's going on there, and we all need to be apprised, and we're watching that. So thank you for bringing that up. Other items on the agenda, I wrote, so hopefully y'all read my reviews, because that's just me, that's just me as a citizen, and just thoughts that I have that I send to y'all each week, and it takes a lot of time, but it's to help our community. So I wrote about the 10 items that are with Tampa Police Department, which I support the police, but there's a lot of money there that, I don't know. I just don't know how the police, financing work. I guess I can look into that. There's these forfeitures I saw, that there's a lot of money in forfeitures that I think that money can go to use for neighborhoods, maybe where the crime was committed, maybe where the forfeiture was taken, and we could use that to fill a pothole one here and there, or dig out a ditch that's plugged up. The item number 40, talking about all this sod, $500,000 in sod, and here we're trying to save water. I think having to water all this sod is a waste of water. And speaking of that, I don't know if anybody here has any input at the airport on water, but I don't know if you've ever used the bathroom at the airport. You can sit there and it'll flush on you 3 times, and so you're sitting there listening to 1,000 toilets flush with nobody there. So somebody probably needs to look into that self-flushing toilets. It's a waste of water. I'm looking at item 43, this red flag, tell on your neighbor. I don't think that's a good idea for neighbors to be encouraged to just tell on their neighbors. The items number 92 and 93, we support SOG as much as you can, because obviously we've been neglected and are not necessarily South Tampa in the aspect of what people think of South Tampa. So we would like that. 73, that brownfield that they're trying to establish over George Road. I grew up in that neighborhood. My dad used to golf on that golf course. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that.
Thank you.
Gotcha. There's a few other options. I don't know if they're, we can't talk about 84 or whatever the majority of that neighborhood would want. Oh, that's the Rembrandt. So that's another, I think they worked it out. eliminating FAR. And
Thank you so much, thank you.
10:30.
Thanks. Have a great day.
I was ready. Chair. The next speaker was going to be Lee Schaeffler. He did sign up to speak. Unfortunately, he did not phone in to participate, so that's going to conclude general public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
It is 10:39. Last Thursday evening, you did continue an item due to a tie vote, and the request and motion was to have this item heard at 10:30 as first.
All right, I know Mr. Carlson had asked for item number 88 to be heard. I don't think it's gonna take too long. So we're gonna go ahead and hear 88, and then we'll get to the 10:30.
Mr. Chairman,
Recognize.
before you move to, just a question. In light of some of the comments about SOD, S-O-D, I would ask that we pull item 40, which is that SOD item, and I would like to ask staff a question or two about that item. So if we could pull it to staff reports, I think it will be fairly quick, but take it off consent. That's a motion.
Second by Mr. Miranda. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Hope that we have somebody from staff for item number 40. All right, item number 88. Hot topic of the day. One of the hot topics.
Thank you again for accommodating us this morning and accommodating us early on the agenda. Item 88 is for your consideration, a contract for services with the Economic Development Council. It is a renewal of an existing contract for services. The contract provides for expanded scope, improved transparency and accountability, and at no increased cost. 2 weeks ago, when that item was up for consideration, the council requested staff work with Councilman Carlson on a number of matters that he raised and suggestions that were made. We've done that. I think we had some very deliberate and thoughtful discussions with Mr. Carlson, and that brings us back to you today, reflecting on an edited contract. It's been revised and resubmitted to you for your vote today. In addition, there is what I would call a commitment letter on behalf of the EDC, executed by its counsel, who joins me here this morning and will speak momentarily. But in short, Mr. Carlson's suggested items, there were 15 items listed. We've been able to account for 12 of them. 7 of them will be incorporated into the contract as contractual terms. The balance of those are reflected in, again, what I would call a commitment letter on behalf of the EDC for process and matters that we will look at prospectively in terms of continuing to improve their performance as a service provider to the city. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask Ron Cristaldi, who represents the EDC, to join me. He can elaborate on any of those items, and we'd be happy to take questions before the vote. Thank you.
All council members have a letter from Mr. Cristaldi from Shoemaker. Madam Clerk, do you have a copy of it? Okay, I'll make sure you have a copy of it. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Thank you for having us here today. And Councilman Vieira, sorry for my back being slightly to you here. Appreciate council's time here today. My name is Ron Cristaldi. I'm an attorney with the Shoemaker firm. I have the pleasure of serving as general counsel to the Tampa Bay Economic Development Corporation. First, I want to thank council for their commitment to economic development. It's been extraordinary in the past, and I know we've got a bright future ahead of us. I also want to thank Councilman Carlson for his thoughtful comments and for all of the time he spent with me over the past week, both in person and by phone, to work through those issues. As Ms. Post indicated, there were really 14 plus a bonus potential set of issues that Councilman Carlson had raised. They were all very good points that we worked through. The EDC respectfully declines the bonus opportunity, although it's a great idea. They're comfortable with the current compensation structure. Of the 14 other remaining things we worked through and included in contract amendments, 12 of those 14. The other 2, I think we talked through, and ultimately it was consensus that they were maybe not ripe at this time to address in the contract or through the commitment letter. So thank you, Councilman Carlson, for your thoughtful time with me and on behalf of the EDC and all you've done in the past for economic development. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Our ask today is that the contract that I provided, which is an amendment to what was here before council last time, be approved as presented.
Ms. Carlson, this was your motion, sir. We'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And you all know that economic development is something that I've been involved in for a long time. I'm passionate about it. I want to make sure we change the trajectory. If you look at TampaScorecard.com, Tampa as not as a region, but Tampa as a city compared to other cities in Florida and cities like Austin, Charlotte, and Atlanta didn't do very well in the last 10 years. And so I think it's up to us to change the trajectory, and we've all been sidelined by COVID and other challenges, but now's the time that we can reset and move forward. The EDC is a part of the economic development sphere, but putting these changes in place will help us all focus on getting results in the future. I want to thank, first of all, Councilmember Miranda for seconding and supporting the motion, the other folks who supported it. Thank you to Ms. Post, the mayor, James Nozar, and others who helped put this together, but in particular to Ron Cristaldi, who was doing this for free on behalf of the EDC, and he has probably a high billing rate, and he spent a lot of time with me going through this, and he was a great mediator and very thoughtful at discussing this. And so with that said, I'm happy for the community that we put all these changes in place and that we found consensus among everyone. 12 of the 15 things are now in here. And so I've completely switched around the last couple weeks, and I'm happy to either make a motion to support it or vote for it.
I'll second that. Mr. Carlson, thank you for your expertise in the matter. We know you're an expert in economic development, so the council thanks you for your leadership on that. Before we take the vote, any council members have any questions in reference to the contract, anything? Questions, Mr. Cristaldi? Mr. Miranda?
No, I'm fine. I've read it, and I'm fine with item 41.
All right, that case, Mr. Carlson, would you like to make the motion? Move this item, sir?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Miranda has moved it. Mr. Carlson? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, and Good.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Chairman.
recognize Mr. Shelby?
And just for the purpose of the record and the clerk, this is the amended substitute contract, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think legal has
You have
already
does
submitted that.
the clerk have a copy of that?
Yes, I do have a copy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Post. Thank you, Mr. Master.
Thank you, council, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have a 10:30 time, sir. Is that correct, Mr. Shelby?
That is correct, sir.
All right, well, let's move to it. Let's get at it.
That item again is number
Number 83.
Number 83, I believe. Is Ms. Johnson-Velez online, or is she available?
83 times. Sir, open the public hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Miranda, open. Ms. Maniscalco, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
Mr. Chairman, if I
You
may.
recognize?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this has been brought back to council pursuant to Rule 6H of the City Council's Rules of Procedure due to a lack of an affirmative vote of 4. The vote was with a 3-3 tie. That vote is set forth in your agenda under item number 83. Councilmember Dingfelder was absent, and at this time, what I would like to do is I would like to ask Councilmember Dingfelder if he has had the opportunity to review the record, and is he prepared to vote?
Yes and yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelby.
Before, may I make a quick?
You recognize?
Sir.
Thank you. No, I just for the record, I didn't tell you this, Mr. Shelby. I'd gotten a call on this case yesterday. I told him I would disclose that nothing was said of any substance whatsoever from Titus O'Neill, otherwise known as Thaddeus Bullard, who called to inquire on it. And I said, dear friend, I cannot speak with you substantively on this. I just wish to disclose that for the record.
Well, I thank you for doing that, sir, because that would bring me into the next subject, and I see Councilmember Citro. Sir, what, you were going to say something?
Do you want to finish your statement?
Yes, yeah, because I'd like to make this part of the record, and I thank Councilmember Vieira for doing what he did, because this brings me to the discussion of ex parte communications. As you are aware, he hearing was reopened and continued to today. So if there were questions of Councilmember Dingfelder or any other questions, then we can address that. If you have been contacted by anybody verbally for ex parte communications, I would ask that you do so at this time, and then we'll address the written ex parte communication. So if there's anybody who has had any ex parte communications verbally or other than just emails received, please disclose them now.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Mr. Shelby, if I may. Also, I was approached by two different entities in a phone conversation about this subject, asking if I had any questions or comments, and I said at that time I could not make any comments, any questions, and nothing was discussed about this item.
Okay.
I would just like to make that clear for the record.
Well, thank you, sir.
Ms. Shelby,
yes.
I also was contacted in reference to some other items, but this item did come up, and I let the folks know we could not discuss this item because it was coming up for a vote.
So there was no substantive discussion at
No,
all?
sir.
Thank you. Anybody else, please? Yes, sir.
I did receive a phone call, but same thing. I can't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, I understand. And that was it.
Okay.
And if I may,
Yeah.
and just, may I? And just for the public's knowledge, which is a lot of people who contact us on quasi-judicials have no idea that we are not supposed to speak, because the public assumes that if something comes before council, they can contact us. So in other words, this is something that a lot of members of the public are confused by because they don't know it, but we have to disclose it, so.
And,
I was not contacted.
and if I can, thank you, Councilman Vieira, because for the benefit of the public, quasi-judicial matters are things that have to be based on competent, substantial evidence that is taken in the record and upon which you base your decision. And what happens is if people discuss it outside, it creates a problem in the fact that it's not disclosed during the meeting. So that's why we're doing this now. But I thank you all. With regard to
Mr. Shelby?
Yes.
Excuse me. It's my understanding in talking to my legislative aide that our office had a phone call from somebody. I don't know the content of it. I didn't want to know the content of it, but I told her to type that up and put it into the quasi file. So I hope it made it into the quasi file, but I'm unaware of the details of that call, but I know it was related to this matter.
And and things that are put into the what we call the electronic quasi box are uploaded, and people do have the opportunity to view that in advance of the hearing, and certainly council does have opportunities to review that. This one is rather unusual, council, because normally when we have these continuances, we don't get communications electronically, but in this case we've gotten communications from both the applicant's attorney and also from people in the community, and those have been uploaded and made available.
Shelby,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda wants to be.
I just want to clarify everything. I said I was not contacted, and I still stand by that. Somebody might have called, but I never received any information one way or the other through mail, email, or phone call that I know of. Thank you.
Mr. Shelby, I do know that I did receive an email from Adam Carnegie. It appears, Mr. Bentley, I believe, from Mr. Bentley as well, with some detailed points in reference to this case.
Yes.
That I did want to discuss that an issue that I think is, about the neighborhood. It's a question I might want to ask both parties.
Well, that is your prerogative when you reopen the public hearing. So before we do that, what I'm going to ask to do is for you to receive and file those communications, electronic communications that have been provided to City Council and have been uploaded, so they make them part of the record. Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Vasquez, move, second by Mr. Miranda.
Question.
Question, Mr.
Question
Miranda.
on the motion. I guess one of the disadvantages of having a computer here at my desk is I just saw a letter came in with the title Lukens 1. I haven't read it, but I see that it's here coming in at 10:41 a.m. I'm gonna identify the author as Mike Koulianis. Like I say it, I clicked on it, but I haven't read it because once I saw it said Lukens, I realized I shouldn't read this. But with the timing and everything, I wanted to make sure that I disclose this, and as soon as possible, I'll print out a copy and we'll put it in the quasi file.
And that is on, and now Mr. Bentley is made aware of that, and if there's something that needs to be addressed, he'll have that opportunity.
But like I say, I haven't even read the text
But
or
you
the
see-
content. I don't know if he's for or against. It's Mike Koulianos, Koulianos.
And frankly, that raises a very interesting point, counsel, and we're going to have to discuss this at another time outside this hearing. But receiving communications such as that during a public meeting are issues that we have to address. We're in an electronic age, and certainly, particularly with quasi-judicial, Councilmember Dingfelder, thank you for bringing that to our attention and putting that into the record. There are other jurisdictions that have open record periods for these sort of matters, and if you miss the deadline, you have to come in person and do it in person, either virtually or not. We've tried to be very accommodating, and we've changed a lot of processes in order to accommodate people during the pandemic, but it has also created a lot of new issues that we've never had to face, and it is problematic, and we're learning that with regard to even public records requests and the like. So we are, I'm actively researching, and I'm going to be working with the legal department because such as these issues have to be addressed.
Mr. Carlson, recognized.
Yeah, I was not looking at my email, but when Councilmember Dingfelder mentioned that he received an email, I looked down and saw that I had received an email, but I didn't read it. So
Okay.
I just wanted to tell you, I was not looking at the email until he said that.
Okay, well, please be advised that if you do get emails during the meeting and you do not know the sender and you do not know what they are, and you are in the midst of a public meeting, that you refrain from reading them during the meeting. That would be my advice to you. Was there a vote on the motion to receive and file?
Yeah, Mr. Maniscalco, motion to receive and file. Miranda seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
Now, counsel, I want to ask if Ms. Johnson-Velez has anything that I neglected to speak to you about that she would want to bring to your attention before we move forward.
Ms. Velez, you recognized.
Thank you, sir. Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I have nothing further at this time. I think Mr. Shelby covered everything for the time being.
Also, Mr. Chairman and members of council, Mr. Bentley on the second floor is present, and he wanted to provide additional evidence in the record, and he wanted to hand it to me to do that, but at this point in time, I think it's more appropriate from him, if he wishes to, on the record, proffer that evidence, and council will make the determination as whether it wants to hear it or not, and of course, then that'll perhaps open the door for other questions.
All right, let's open the hearings, Mr. Shelby. Let's get on with it.
Thank you. Sorry to take a while.
All right, staff?
Good morning, Council. Ryan Manassi, Development
Hello.
Coordination. This is Johnson Velez stating, and Mr. Shelby as well. This was heard on 10/28, and due to the 3-3 vote, it was continued to this next available session. Staff would like to be sworn in, as well as I have staff available for any questions that you may have.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We even got Ms. Calloway here today. That's an important issue here today, huh?
Jonathan's out today, so Melanie's jumping in. But Council, staff is available for you, and we'll turn it back over to the chair.
All right, guess we'll hear from the applicant.
Audio
Well,
is
he got
not
him
on.
sworn in.
Oh, I'm
Have we been sworn
sorry.
in, Mr. Bentley? Anyone
no, I
speaking?
haven't.
Anyone speaking? Let's do that right now, sir, in your part.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Okay. Here again, Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, 33602. As Marty indicated, I had additional evidence. Actually, this is evidence that we utilized through the entire request for a relief process. It's the summary of prior city council waivers granted from January 2019 to February 2021. These are waivers from residentially zoned properties, and I would proffer that into the record. Thanks.
Did you want to put it displayed at least on the overhead so that council can see what it is you're referring to? And your point is,
I'll just explain it, Marty, so the council understands, if that's appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, members of council?
I don't have an issue with that.
Okay. What we've done is we researched 33 waivers, distance waivers granted in connection with ABs over that time frame from January 2019 to February 2021 when this petition was originally denied. There have been 33 waivers granted. 2 have been denied, only 1 from residentially zoned property, and that relates to the city's denial of our client's petition in on February 25th. That's all.
And Mr. Chairman?
You recognize?
Just a reminder with regard to that testimony or that proffer of evidence that indicates specific cases with specific sets of facts upon which decisions were specifically made. And what I'm saying to you then, counsel, is from the viewpoint of competent substantial evidence solely in this case, aside from any other purposes that it might have, the decision should be based upon the competent substantial evidence that supports your decision, whatever it is.
Thank you, Mr. Shelby. Mr. Bentley, continue, sir. Mr. Bentley?
Pardon me?
You can continue, sir.
Is that it for your presentation, your proffer? You wish to have that accepted into evidence?
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple comments,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far afield here. I mean,
If we could have a motion then just to receive and file that. and Mr.
Motion
Bentley,
received
how
and
do I make sure
filed.
we get a
Mr.
copy?
Miranda, second by Mr. Mascot. All in favor? Any
Thank
opposed? Motion granted.
How
okay,
much
thank
time,
you.
how
Thank
much
you.
time for Mr. Bentley, counsel? Mr. Bentley, how long do you need to speak?
2 minutes, and if you have any questions, certainly
2
we'll try.
minutes granted.
Okay, thank you. The issue before you is not a traffic comparison between a prior use and a proposed retail store. I think we kind of got lost in the weeds a little bit toward the end of the hearing last week. I think from our perspective, that's kind of a diversion, and the issue before council is whether the proposed retail liquor store meets the general and special criteria under Chapter 27, which is your code. There are many uses allowed under the current zoning that would have substantially more traffic impacts on the neighborhood. And with these uses, you'd have no control over, and there wouldn't be any traffic mitigation like we're proposing. These are, for example, a bank, restaurant, medical marijuana, and the like. Your professional planning staff has rendered an opinion that the application is consistent with all codes. Our experts, through reports and testimony, have demonstrated that the application meets all codes. We've worked very hard with staff at great expense over the last 6 months to make modifications to our proposal that make it consistent with Chapter 27. Therefore, our client has met its burden of proof in the form of competent substantial evidence as required by the law. This is a legal process and not a popularity contest. So please consider the evidence and grant approval of the settlement proposal that was endorsed by the special magistrate and city staff. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kingfellow, you recognized.
I just wanted to make sure Mr. Bentley's done because I had a question for staff.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I've got a
Thank you,
question.
Mr. Bentley. First off, I just wanted, I did watch this in full. I think it was like an hour or at least, and all the way through to Mr. Citro's motion and et cetera, et cetera. And I apologize for not being able to attend that for this particular one. But anyway, but I did watch it in full and I'm ready to vote. But I did have a couple of questions first. And I don't know if this is a legal question or a staff question, but Mr. Bentley just stated a second ago, he said it meets the code. But if it met the code, it wouldn't be asking for a waiver of the distance separation to the residential. And so I guess Ms. Johnson-Velez, perhaps this is more of a legal question to you or to Mr. Maness. I'm not really sure. You guys can decide. You know, is it safe to say that it meets the code? If it met the code, why would they be asking for a waiver? Don't jump right in there.
You're muted, Mr. Johnson-Velez, you're muted.
Yes, Susan Johnson Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I'll at least start off with comments. So this is coming to you in the form of a proposed settlement as a result of a Florida Land Use Environmental Dispute Resolution mediation.
Right.
That statute requires both parties to send to the mediation either somebody who can bind the party or somebody who can recommend a solution. And that's the position that staff is in, both myself and Mr. Manassi and the rest of staff that you see here. We are recommending the solution to you as a compromise and as additional mitigation to address and mitigate from any negative effects that may result from the granting of the waiver or from the requested waiver, that proximity to residential. And so with the proposed 3 items, the additional buffering, the continuous hedge, driveway modifications that are proposed along with the signage, we are recommending that based on those things, this satisfies the intent of the code.
Okay. Well, satisfies the intent of the code, I think, is more of a council decision, but that's just my opinion. But I wanted to get, because somebody could be reading this down the road. A court reviewing this could be reading the transcript down the road. And with all due respect to my good friend, Mark Bentley, who I've practiced around and with and across from for 30 years, and he's a great lawyer and he's done a great job, but he used the term that this project meets the code. If it met the code, we wouldn't need a waiver. Is that true, Ms. Johnson Velez?
That is generally true. That is generally true.
Mr. Dingfelder,
well,
the staff report on the page 1. I'm sorry.
Well,
It says consistent on page 1.
One at a time, Mr.
Okay,
Mr. Dingfelder, do
I'm
you want to
sorry.
hear from Mr. Bentley?
I apologize.
Yeah, no, I'll be glad to hear from Mr. Bentley when I'm done.
Okay.
But my point is just as a matter of law, okay, that this doesn't meet the code. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked for a waiver to start with, and ultimately they're continuing to ask for a waiver. They've justified it by offering these 3 alleged mitigations that they and staff and legal believe satisfy it. But at the end of the day, it's up to council to determine if in fact council believes that it's adequate mitigation to address that and to justify the waiver. But I just want to make sure that any court down the road that's reading this doesn't get confused and say, oh, they meet the code. Well, they can't meet the code because this existing building is within X number of feet as opposed to the code standard, which was 250 feet. Did I misstate any of that, Ms. Johnson Velez?
No, sir, you did not.
Okay. All right.
It is ultimately council's decision to determine whether or not, if the waiver is granted, the application with the waiver and with this additional mitigation that's being recommended to you through this mediation process, if the application satisfies the code criteria. That is ultimately council's decision. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And the other question I have is, again, Mr. Bentley's a great attorney and he represents his clients very, very well in all matters. But Mr. Shelby instructed us, and I want to hear this also from the city attorney's office. Typically, we're told that these matters, whether or not it's a rezoning, a wet zoning, or whatever, should be decided on the 4 corners of the case itself, and that we shouldn't look to, another wet zoning that we did last week or another rezoning that we did a month ago for precedent, okay? Because each one is supposed to stand on the evidence within the 4 corners of the case itself. Would you agree with that, Ms. Johnson Velez?
Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. Yes, I would. You must evaluate each of these applications on their own merits without regard to your decision or any waivers that might have been granted in any other case.
Okay, so the fact that we accepted Mr. Bentley's document into evidence, probably more as a courtesy than anything, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're recommending, that we now dive into and review and say, oh, in these last 30 cases, blah, 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 blah.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right, I think those are my only questions. I did have one other question to staff and/or legal. There keeps being referenced back to the Rooms to Go children's retail facility that was there before, or any other possible commercial facility that could be on this property. But in the way I read the code, what makes this unique is the fact that it is an alcohol facility. It's specifically a packaged good. And our code calls out packaged goods in this particular neighborhood, with a 250-foot distance separation requirement to residential. So it's a little bit apples to oranges when we start talking about these other uses and the amount of traffic they generate and that sort of thing, because in my opinion, for whatever reason, whoever drafted this ordinance, maybe it was us, maybe it was a prior council, have identified the wet use, the alcohol use, as a different animal. And I'm sorry to belabor this, but as a result, we've created a different standard at 250 feet that it does not exist for any of these other retail uses. Am I correct, Ms. Johnson-Velez?
You're muted. You're muted, Mr. Velez.
Yes, Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. Certainly the alcoholic beverage special use permits that's sought here does have that 250-foot distance separation requirement that may not be, or that does not apply to some other retail uses that might occupy this space.
Okay. All right, I think that's all I have. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for indulging me on that time.
Mr. Bentley, I'll let you respond to Mr. Dingfelder, but I do have a question I want to ask since you sent this information. I'm curious about, and I'll ask legal about as well. Ms. Shelby, recognized?
Yes, thank you. Just to circle back with regard to an issue that Councilman Dingfelder just raised. Your rules of procedure, Rule 7F states that the action of receiving and filing documents by the City Council shall not in any way be construed to constitute concurrence with or endorsement by the City Council of the matter being received and filed.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized.
I have a request. If council would consider asking all of its questions now, and then have staff, whoever is the appropriate person to ask the question of, and then Mr. Bentley will then have the opportunity to address these on rebuttal at the end of all of the comments, questions that you have.
Thank you. Any council questions? I'll go, all right, put your hands up. I'll wait till last. Mr. Vieira, we'll go with Mr. Maniscalco. Oh, I'll tell you. Mr. Maniscalco?
I just wanted clarification. There was a daycare across the street. Is that daycare active? Is it an active daycare right now?
All right.
Mr. Maniscalco?
Yes.
The daycare was listed by RE/MAX for redevelopment for 2 or 3 homes, and I sent an email kind of outlining that to City Council. So that was listed for about 340 days, more or less. And then our hearing was last Thursday, and then kind of surprisingly on Monday, maybe to get through this process, it became inactive, but it's still online, so those are the facts.
But is it an active business, or is it just it used to be a daycare and it's up for sale right now as a vacant property?
All I can tell you is this, is that it appears that Hillsborough County Child Care Licensing, which has jurisdiction over daycares, the last time they inspected the subject property was February of 2021. That's not to say it's not open.
Okay.
But if you look at the regular schedule in terms of inspections, they occur either monthly or every 2 months.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Well, Mr. Maniscalco, you beat me kind of to the punch there, sir. I was wondering the same thing in reference, is this property up for sale? Has it been sold or what have you? Because we're talking about the neighborhood and alcohol in the neighborhood. That's the gist, not just traffic. It's about the alcohol being, in the crowds into the neighborhoods. So I guess that's going to be a question probably we'll ask the folks who are opposed to this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. There may be people on the second floor that you may want to inquire if they have personal knowledge of that. That would answer the question as opposed to, Mr. Bentley's statement, or in addition to Mr. Bentley's statement, I should say. And also, I don't know whether anybody's registered online for this, Madam Clerk.
Madam Clerk?
No one is registered online for this item.
All right, well,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
Since I did have the benefit of watching this in great detail the other day, and I'm not going to testify in terms of what I heard Mr. Pelez say about operating a daycare. It sounded like it was still active to me, but I'll let you decide yourself. But I do want to point out we have to be careful on that daycare issue, because legal staff made it abundantly clear, and everybody's made it abundantly clear, that, and Ms. Johnson-Velez, you correct me if I'm wrong, that the daycare distance is not at issue today. The daycare distance. And we don't want to mess up a record confusing that, because what's at issue is the 250 feet to a residential. And that's uncontroverted, that there's, I think, at least one, if not more, residences that are within that 250 feet. You have somebody down on two, Mr. Shelby?
No. I'm just thinking if you want to ask Ms. Johnson-Velez about that, to have legals state that rather than from you.
Well, the legal issue that I heard repeated several times, the daycare distance is not at issue, and we shouldn't consider that. Do you agree with that, Ms. Johnson-Velez?
Susan Johnson-Velez, Legal Department. Yes, I believe that's correct, and Mr. Manassi can step in and correct me if I'm wrong, but because this is in the West Shore Business District, the only distance separation waiver is 250 feet from residential properties.
Brian Manassi, I concur. That is correct, Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Manassi, do you know how many feet it is away from those residents?
The daycare, sir, I'm not aware of.
No.
So
the property in question. The property in question. Do we know how many feet it is away from the residential area?
The residential property is 138 feet.
138 feet.
From the building, from the building, but the first property actually butts up against the parking lot of the property, correct, Ryan?
Correct, Councilman Dingfelder. So the 138 feet is from the property. It would be, if you're standing to the rear of the property looking at the parking lot facing west, it's actually towards your south. Now, the property that directly abuts to the west is actually a little bit more than 138 feet. And the way alcohol measurements are done is from the alcohol establishment's boundary for the AB scales to that closest property boundary. So again, that 138 feet is actually not that property directly to the west. It's a little, there's a residential property to the south. And for the record, I have that address too. I can just restate it. It's 3807 North B Street. And it is zoned to RS50. And again, it's 138 feet.
And Mr. Dingfelder, and I know you mentioned about the daycare, but it's not just the daycare for me now, getting some of this information. Again, I want to, maybe some of those folks who may be speaking, we can ask this question. When I read some of the stuff that's in the article here, and we're talking about traffic, and we're saying that we're a community that, the way it reads, I'm kind of confused when you're fighting this, but you're saying this in an article to sell property. So
I don't know what
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, you seem to be making reference to an article.
Yeah, I submitted it to the clerk's office.
Yeah, please do, but if you can for
I guess it's what Mr. Bentley sent us, his points of possible evidence he sent here to council.
Hey, Marty, I can explain that, what it is.
Did you have a question for Mr. Bentley, or did you want to have him address it at rebuttal, sir?
He can address it at rebuttal.
Okay. Is there any other questions for anybody else?
Mr. Carlson?
Just following up on the distance separation, and sorry if this is a naive legal question or one from Mr. Manassi. If the current way to measure is from the building to the adjacent property, but if the alcohol license goes with the property, if sometime 50 years from now someone tears down the property and wants to build to the lot line or whatever is allowed at that time, are they still restricted somehow with the alcohol license, or is the alcohol license applied to the entire perimeter of the property?
I can answer that, Mr. Carlson. So the alcohol boundary is very specific, and it actually has a cutout legal description. So for this said address and subject site, the alcohol cutout legal description is specifically that existing building boundary. So if, let's just say they came down the line even 10 years from now and expanded 1 foot to the west, it would be out of compliance with that legal description that's approved by us in our right-of-way department, and they'd have to come back through for another special use too, if it was going to be the same exact request.
Thank you.
So no increase in that, if this were to be approved, no increase in that approved legal description boundary of that existing building.
You recognize, sir.
Just for clarification, there is an entrance and exit, not on Dale Mabry, but is it Fig? What is it, side street? Are there no left-hand turn signs? Or would they be placed
That's
there?
one of the Ryan Manasseh Development Coordination. So through this FLUJA process, that was part of the mediated site plan that was presented before you on 1028. The raised curb for that exit off of Fig, as well as there are some signage locations for no left turn.
So they would have to come in and out off of Dale Mabry only? Well, turn off Dale Mabry and take that side street?
Yes, sir. Chair,
Okay.
if I may.
Yep.
You recognize, Vic?
Vic Bede, Mobility Department. So the raised concrete feature submitted for review will be paired with a no left turn sign out of the property so that coming out of the property, you're not allowed to enter the neighborhood. But the raised feature also curves in such a way that it becomes infeasible to do so. Also, the property is not easy to enter from the neighborhood because of the design of the raised curve feature. And the whole purpose of that signage and the raised concrete feature is to ensure that there is very limited traffic through the neighborhood. This is consistent with what we have done in other places off of Dale Mabry, south of Kennedy as well.
Dingfelder, recognize.
Thank you. Mr. Bede, I'm pretty familiar with those little devices, pork chops they call them. There's one over next to Home Depot at Spruce that was supposed to direct traffic back toward Dale Mabry. And in fact, that thing's been so run over and chewed up that it's almost at ground level. Are you familiar with that one?
Not specifically.
Yeah. Also, the testimony I heard in this case the other day, last week, from one of the folks who live on it, said that right across the street from this proposed pork chop, there's another pork chop for another business, and the lady testified who lives on the street that again, that pork chop is ignored, run over, etc. And then my other point is that it's not only traffic leaving this place, but isn't it true that folks who are coming to this proposed liquor store can come through the neighborhood from the west and down Fig to the liquor store? And we're not controlling that neighborhood intrusion at all, are we?
So the design feature does make it difficult to make that turn and discourages that turn. And the goal for that feature is that. Having said that, these features are mountable, and they're mountable so that delivery vehicles can come in and out of the property, but they have been shown to be generally effective.
Okay, so in fact, even delivery vehicles could be coming up the backside from the west, down Fig. There's no signs that say no truck traffic or anything like that, and making that right-hand turn into there. I know you guys reduced the radius. I saw that on the original presentation, but it doesn't preclude any vehicles from actually doing that.
It doesn't make it impossible for them to access it from there being mountable.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'll let Mr. Bentley, any other questions? I'll let Mr. Bentley respond, and we'll get on to, if anybody else on the second floor.
Okay,
speakers
great.
out.
I'd first like to address Mr. Dingfelder's issue about the waiver. That's true in terms of precedent, Mr. Dingfelder. Each case stands on its own facts, but the fact of the matter, just overall, since January 2019 through February 2021, there have been 33 waivers granted. 2 were denied, only 1 to residentially zoned property, and that was our clients. And a lot of these, just my testimony is they didn't provide any mitigation. So that being said, we're seeking a 112-foot waiver. These waiver standards were enacted in 1945, long before people knew what a convenience store was. But in any event, they're in the code. There's a process in your code to justify obtaining a waiver. That's if you meet the goals and objectives of the general criteria and you provide mitigation to offset the reduction in separation requirements. So here again, we're 112 feet short. We proposed there's not going to be any parking in the right of way. We have surplus parking. We proposed buffering. We limited hours of operation, which will significantly reduce traffic. They could have stayed open till 3 under your code, and weekdays are closing at 10 and Friday and Saturday at 12. We have signage, traffic calming device, and that being said, your professional planning staff, they opine that based on the mitigation we proposed, that offset the distance waiver requirement. With respect to Mr. Good's inquiry concerning the property, all I can tell you is this, sir, is that up till October 31, the property was marketed by RE/MAX and also was online on Zillow, Realtor.com, all the real estate websites, and on page 2 of the email, that was the language on site, and I just pulled it off. And it says, perfect for a builder or investor, 2 separate homes could easily be built on these lots. Talk about an amazing investment, et cetera, et cetera. So what happened is on Monday, November 1st, the listing that had been listed for about 345 days, more or less, was identified as inactive. And I'm not going to speculate as to why all of a sudden in the middle of the hearing process it was determined to be inactive. But here again, there was a lot of discussion, especially by the attorney for Mr. Pelaez, Michael Pelaez, who apparently owns the daycare, that there was concern about traffic impacts on the daycare. So based on what we know here, and that the daycare is short-lived, whether it's functional at this point in time or not, I really couldn't say. You'd have to ask Mr. Pelaez or one of his representatives. So, you know, the city sets up a process here and all these rules, and we've gone through this entire process, and we've done everything we can to offset the 112 feet. And your staff has agreed that, all things considered, that we are now totally consistent with the general standards and the special standards of your code that justify the issuance of the special use permit. There's not much more we can do. You know, you get a lot of these waiver requests with people simply not doing anything. So there has to be a process to offset the waiver request. Otherwise, the code would probably, you know, unconstitutional if you couldn't ever, you know, issue a waiver to an applicant. So we've met all the criteria. The testimony of our experts, the planning expert and transportation expert, is substantial competent evidence. Okay, and that's in the record along with your staff's recommendation. So unless you have any questions, we would respectfully request that you approve the special use permit.
All right, well, no other questions. We're gonna move on.
Oh, one other thing too, sorry, Mr. Goods, is the pork chop across the street. Michael Yates, our traffic engineer, would like to address that point. Mike, he's familiar with that.
Hello, this is Michael Yates with Palm Traffic, and I have been sworn. Commissioner Dingfelder, there is no pork chop across the street. It is a wide open driveway. They've done a radius, inbound radius that's a little larger, but there is no pork chop across the street.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right, well, we'll move on. Is anybody else on the second floor to speak on this item? Anybody else on the second floor to speak on this item?
They're on their way.
On the way, okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, you recognize?
My question would be, if they have testified previously, then if there's any questions of counsel or anything that they would need to address that was discussed today, but limited to that, rather than just take testimony from just, and particularly, it would be helpful to know if they were in the 250 feet noticed area, and if they have, if they did receive written notice of that, just so, or if they represent somebody who does, so it's clear for the record.
All right.
Mr. Shelby, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
You recognize?
I respectfully disagree with that. Mr. Bentley was offered the opportunity to provide additional evidence, and he did. Okay?
Right,
So, and he did. He offered his page of wet zonings, whatever that was, and we accepted that as additional evidence. All of a sudden, we're saying that whoever's out here, and I have no idea what they want to offer us, might want to offer additional evidence. I'd say what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Well, let's see who shows up, and then it'll be council's determination, I would think. Let's take that cross.
No, I
I
think
understand I understand what you're saying.
The due process requires us to be fair on both sides.
Well, the question is, who are the two sides? One side is the city, the other side is Mr. Bentley, or Mr. Bentley's client. The question is, that's why I'm asking specifically who's within the 250 feet who might, in fact, have standing, if they wish to have that challenge and have that opportunity, their opportunity to have due process. Due process does not
We allowed people to speak no matter where they lived previously.
And that was given to them on the 28th.
Right. All right, well, let's just hear what they have to say, but I think we need to be very careful about limiting the substance of what they have to say.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on so we can bring it for a landing.
We have 5 speakers right now.
Bring them all up now to be sworn in. I don't want to keep going back and forth. There are 5. Bring them in now to be sworn in so we keep moving. All right, Madam Clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shelby, you're stating that if they're not putting any new evidence, they've already spoken to 28, correct, sir?
Well, A, I would ask that they identify that they spoke on the 28th. B, I would ask if they received written notice. And C, I would ask that if there's any specific questions of counsel, that it be addressed to them. And if there's anything they want to address in response to what they heard today, this would be their opportunity to do so within the time they have.
Okay, ma'am, you're up first. Did you hear the questions by our attorney?
If I could inquire.
Okay.
I am not in the quote-unquote, in the
250 feet.
proposed, I'm not within the 250 feet, but I live 4 houses down. Tell them your name and address. Oh, sorry. My name is Luz Pelias Lowe. I've been sworn in. I reside and own 3817 West Fig Street. I came to plead with the city council to oppose Big Liquor's special use permit for proposed liquor store. I was told in previous meetings my property was out of the range for it to affect my home, being 4 houses down from said property for beer and liquor sales. It's been discussed, the issues of traffic, increased noise, crime, daycare across the street, decreased property values. It will affect our neighborhood dynamics and the street I live on. I just want to tell you one thing about myself. My husband was in the military, served 20 years. for the Air Force. He served in Desert Storm and also other missions. Unfortunately, he was an alcoholic, and he was a functioning one. But he died at 52, leaving a 21, a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old. It doesn't matter how he got there. It was bigger than him. My problem is the alcohol beverage is the primary product sold. I recently retired, and putting a liquor store would be their constant reminder when I step out of my door what was taken from me. I ask you humbly, please consider the longevity of the Pelias families in North Bon Air and oppose the liquor store. Council, you are the only one who can decide our fate. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, ma'am.
Am I in the right spot?
Yes, ma'am, you're fine.
Hi, I'm Alice Pasquarelli. My address is 3815 Fig Street. I am in the North Bon Air, and I have been sworn in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you're recognized.
And did you receive a notice? Are you within 250 feet of this application?
I did receive a notice they were putting in the liquor store. I live next door to the previous speaker, and I'm gonna say, if the daycare's not within it, then I'm not. I'm one house down from the daycare, but when you come out my front door, like my neighbor, I'm gonna see that liquor store every day. I'd like to say ditto to everything she said, or majority of it. I don't think big town liquors really knew what they were getting into. This is a neighborhood long established. I've been at this address for 47, 48 years now. It's a nice neighborhood. We have enough liquor stores within a mile. There's 6 of them. I just ask that the council people remember there's one way into that parking lot, one way out. I concur with the statements made earlier by the councilman. Home Depot is a perfect example. I worked there for 9 years. Never worked, still doesn't work. I haven't been fully persuaded by the options given to us, the pork chop and the sign. Human nature tells me that's not going to transpire. And as those trucks drive through our neighborhood, we already have potholes as it is. There's no large trucks through the neighborhood. They come anyway, from UPS, beer trucks trying to get to wherever they gotta go, liquor stores. I can already foresee now, they're gonna have to park in the street in order to get it into the store. I just don't think human nature is going to make those folks, some yes, but not all of them. And again, I have enough trouble getting out of my driveway now. And again, we're at your mercy, and we ask that you deny this special permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and City Council.
Morning, sir.
My name is Michael Pelias. I have my daycare across the street from this proposed liquor store, 3809 West Fig Street. And I also live at 3810 Gray Street, which might be in the 250 square feet radius. I lived in the neighborhood for over 70 years. And I raised my children there, and my children raised their grandchildren there, and I've had my business there for over 50 years. And by putting a liquor store, it would change the dynamics of the neighborhood. It would literally change it. I can go out to the neighborhood now in the front at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, perfectly quiet, Nobody riding up and down the streets. You can't hardly hear Del Mabry at that time of day. And we're just a group of homeowners with families and stuff that's opposing this because they don't want to change the neighborhood. They want to keep it the same, quiet, peaceful neighborhood with not a lot of traffic. And you know, you open up a package store there, and anybody that don't want to go down to Wines and More will come down to your place and clog up all that area there during the holidays and actually all day long. And you know, they're going to stay open to midnight, and you're going to have traffic in and out during midnight. And you know, we're used to a quiet neighborhood. And you know, they got attorneys that are very, very good. They got the money behind them. And all we are is just like a group of citizens that we have families there, our homes there, our investments. And you know, by putting an alcohol there, it may lower the value of the property. And it definitely may hurt my business. I don't know. Till they put one there, and then maybe really hurt it. And all we have is just you, the city council, to protect us from people like that trying to put in businesses that trying to change the neighborhood, because we don't have fancy lawyers and stuff like that. And I just hope y'all deny the application. And I thank you for letting me speak.
I have a couple of questions for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're the owner of the daycare, correct?
Yes, I am.
Did you hear what the other attorneys on the other side said about the daycare? And you know, we talk about the neighborhood. I'm a neighborhood person, but it's kind of concerning to me when you talk about your business. So I'm just curious. I mean, is your business actively open as a daycare?
Yes, it is. It's been open for over 50 years.
And it's actively opening right now.
It's open right now.
Okay, so again, are you looking to sell that property because that was?
I was at one time contemplating selling the daycare, and it would continue on as a daycare. That was one of the stipulations of buying the property. But the contract ended up last month. That's why we're not on listing now. And my nephew, he's going to take it over and run the daycare for me. Right now, he's in training with me now.
Okay, sir. Anybody have questions for him? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time and trouble.
Good morning, City Council. Michael Pelaez. I reside at 3810 West Fig Street, directly west to the proposed package store. I won't keep much of your time, and I appreciate and thank you for all considerations. I just wanted to remind City Council that it is a long-standing family there in the neighborhood. My father, myself, and my son, along with my family, that's 3 generations of Michael Pelaez's. I had mentioned I want to build a new house, and I'm not confident that I can reinvest my own money and my family into the neighborhood next to a package store. So with that being said, I just appreciate your considerations and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Council. My name is Toy Pelaez. I reside at 3814 West Gray Street, and I've been sworn in. I'm here for my last testimony for this particular item. As you've heard from my family, just some of them, there are others that are actually having to work and cannot attend these type of meetings. We request it to be denied. As far as traffic goes, Midtown has proven that it's going to get worse. When these gentlemen took their study, Midtown was not open. We were also in the middle of a pandemic to where the traffic studies were flawed. Traffic studies can be flawed. They can be pointed towards the project and against it. As far as decisions go, as far as which way the traffic goes, you tell the customer which way they go. The customers come down from the Fig Street towards Dale Mabry, they're gonna park in the street on the right of way. They do it now at the restaurant across the street when it's crowded. They do not wanna park anywhere else, they'll park in the right of way. You can't enforce that because it'll be constant, and TPD doesn't have the time or the manpower to succeed as far as keeping that clear. As far as crime, that little area they talked about buffering would give some person or person of nefarious activities to hide and do whatever they like to do and gain access to the backyards. As I spoke in the last meeting and the meeting prior to that, I submitted an arrest record of a homeless person that tried to rob me. I had them arrested. Now, this is a constant battle between the homeless and what's there. Wawa's is there. You have approved Wawa's, and their turnover as far as the alcohol rate is pretty substantial. They serve anybody. Whoever shows up and they have an ID, or if they look over 21, they'll be served alcohol. Same thing for big box liquor. Somebody comes in, they're not going to deny them and turn them away. They're going to take their money. As far as what we're up against is corporation versus the citizens of Tampa. We're just a small knit community. North Bon Air is the name. As far as I've lived there pretty much all my life. I'm 61 years old. 2 years removed. For 58 years I've lived there on that block. And now we're going to change the dynamics because it's a popularity contest. I take offense to that. This is not a popularity contest. This is where I live. I choose to live there.
Mr. Pelez, I had a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
My recollection, having traveled up and down those streets quite a bit, is that right there in the first block off Dale Mabry, between Dale Mabry and Church on North B, how many single-family homes are we talking about after the Rooms to Go parking lot and after the Yummy House parking lot and after the daycare? Would you say like 8 or 9 single-family homes?
There's 8 there, as far as that are on Fig Street.
About four on each side of the street?
There's 4, let's see, Michael, there's 5 on one side, 4 on the other.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, as far as traffic goes, again,
Thank you, sir.
I work for the city of Tampa.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm
All right,
not-
anyone else for public comment? Anyone else on this item?
I thought I had unlimited time.
No, sir.
That's what they told me back here.
No, sir, they're wrong.
Okay, well, I do apologize.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Anyone else?
There's one more speaker that hasn't been sworn in.
All right, can we swear him in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'd like to first ask who district it is first of Dale Mabry. Is it John Digger?
Mr. Dingfelder, that would be me, and I'm citywide.
Okay, thank you. I think
Can you state your name for us, sir?
Melvin Lee Hicks.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's an issue of really competition. There's a lot of liquor stores over there, and it's an issue of change in the community, in the neighborhood. Tampa, the city of Tampa has seen a lot of growth in the pandemic, and I think the city council is too old. Too old to make changes. They are going by the same bylaws and the same zoning they've been going by for years. Now, Big Liquors is a big corporation, I believe, and it'll bring competition to the other liquor stores around there. And that neighborhood over there I'm familiar with, it need to change. So, because Tampa changing at a dramatic pace. If y'all ain't about change, what are y'all doing on the city council? Y'all have an economic and growth division y'all started. I mean, it's about change. I think Mr. Diggerfer should be stepped down because he have a controlling interest in this. I could tell. That's my opinion, because he is Mr. Bentley. I was hearing his. They met all qualifications of the thing, but Mr. Dignifer, John Dignifer, is opposed to it. Why is he opposed to it? Change for that community and stuff like that. That's what I wonder about sometimes with y'all city council. Why are y'all opposed to certain stuff that will bring change to communities and stuff like? That's what I'm wondering. I really don't know, but I think it'll be a good competition. It'll drive some of them other liquor stores out, and it'll reshape the community. People say they've been there for years and stuff like that, decades, but it's time for a change. I mean, you can't keep the same thing going on in a city or a community for years. It's time for change. It's change. That's the key word right there. Change. If y'all ain't about change, I see it's like 100 years on the city council. If you add it up, the age of the city council, the members and stuff like that, pretty much y'all going to stagnate the growth of the city if y'all don't change y'all ways of thinking of growth for Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for those comments. Okay, I'm a young guy, huh? All right, Mr. Shelby, we have to give Mr. Bentley time to rebut, right? Is that correct, sir?
Well,
Yes, sir.
hello once again, Mark Bentley. And
Mark, for the record, I think you and I are about the same age, so I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
I thought I was a little younger, but no disrespect, John, but you always act a lot more mature than me, regardless. But I think everything's been said, and I'd just be repetitive up here. And I just want to tell City Council, I know these are tough decisions, and to me, this is kind of like a model for justification of a waiver. I do a lot of this stuff, and I see these waivers granted, and just with really not this kind of thought out mitigation. So we really appreciate the time and consideration, and especially the client. And I think everything's been said at this point. So we respectfully request that you issue the special use permit. And thanks again. Right.
All right, move close.
So moved.
Let's move it. Since we're second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Dingsfeld?
Yeah, I don't want to step on Mr. Sutra's motion because he had made it before, and I'll be glad for him to make it again. Not that it's up to me, but I did want to make a few comments about all the testimony that we've heard. For one thing, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you looking at the record and identifying that the North Bonaire president, Mr. Mosbough, M-O-S-B-O-U-G-H, had written to council, but in rereading his letter, it was abundantly clear. He says, quote, "I can only speak for myself." And he wasn't, there's no indication that he went and that he took a vote of his members or anything like that. He just said, "I can only speak for myself." And then he gives his address at 3900 West North B, which is the next block of North B after church. So he's not within that 250 feet that Mr. Shelby spoke to. In regard to the for sale, the daycare for sale, I think we've got some additional testimony on that today, which was very helpful, but it appears that it's been ongoing and continues to be an ongoing daycare for the last 50 years. And Mr. Pelez says he indicates that he's going to sell it or give it to his nephew to continue to run. The fact that they've had it for sale, I think it's interesting. I don't think it's dispositive of anything. These days, prices are so crazy high that who can blame them for wanting to put it up for sale and just, feeling out the market for a year. But they didn't get the right price they were looking for, or whatever happened or didn't happen. We can't speculate. But the bottom line is, he testified that it's not for sale. And even if it was for sale, Mr. Bentley indicated that it was for sale for additional residential. That additional residential would actually be within 250 feet because it's directly across the street from from the proposed use. But finally, and more importantly, personally, when I listen to all this testimony from the last meeting and today, I believe that even though Mr. Bentley and his clients have in good faith offered mitigation, I don't believe that mitigation overcomes the competent substantial evidence that we heard today. Competent substantial evidence related to traffic problem, noise problems, crime problems, parking problems, property value issues, alcohol issues, and homeless issues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 issues. There are competent substantial evidence was offered from the folks who oppose this waiver, who oppose this settlement, who oppose this AB use on their block, on their residential block. And these folks have lived along that street, obviously turning it into a family compound, okay? Along Fig and then around the corner on Gray. They've turned that whole neighborhood into a family compound. And I guess they could live with rooms to go because it was not a significant alcohol use. But this is a significant, large square footage alcohol use, and I can't support it. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Dingfelder, you brought a lot of great points. I mean, a gray area for me when I had to ask the property owners of that street was the idea of this has been up for sale. And that was concerning to me. Sure. I'm just going to be honest with you. That kind of turned my head a little bit to say that this, you know, we're here fighting about alcohol, but you're willing to say now you're selling this property. This property's up for sale. I don't like to switch my votes. I'm usually consistent to what I vote on, but I'm concerned that all of a sudden now that we're in this hearing, 1031, you take it off the site and take the property off the market, and that's concerning to me. I'm going to be honest with you.
But he did testify that the year contract expired, and being a realtor, I'll tell you, typically these contracts are about a year.
I understand that. I totally understand that. You know, but that's something for me to think over. But I do understand some of your points. But in the near future, you know, I look at what if there's a restaurant being there and they have alcohol there too. So you know, it's just some things to think about, gentlemen. Mr. Citro, are you prepared to do what you need to do, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair, my decision hasn't changed, so I will move to
If I
deny
can,
this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, sir. Forgive me, Councilmember Citro. Before you do a motion, I believe Ms. Johnson-Velez needed to address council. And I wanted to make sure that before a motion is made that anybody, we could have discussion after the motion either way.
All right, Ms. Susan Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Johnson-Velez, Legal Department. Is the public hearing closed now, or?
Yes. We'll move
It
to
is,
close.
okay. Thank you. So I just wanted to remind council, I'm sure Mr. Citro doesn't need reminding, but so because this application is coming to you through the FLUDRA mediation process, it is a two-step process. You would first need to make a motion to either approve, reject, or modify the special magistrate's recommendation. And then depending on the result of that vote, you may or may not need to take action on the ordinance. So I just wanted to remind council that was the first motion that needs to be made, is action upon the special magistrate's recommendation.
I will move that we reject the recommendation of the special magistrate on case number AB 2-21-03.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dingfelder. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
No.
Maniscalco? Vieira? Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
No.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
And Goode.
No.
Motion failed with Carlson, Vieira, Miranda, and Goode voting no.
Is there another motion in order?
Another motion on the table.
A reminder, council, your charter requires action by affirmative vote of 4.
Is there a motion on the table?
So just for clarification, Mr. Shelby, one of those four votes against Mr. Citro's motion would be appropriate to accept the magistrate's ruling at this time, correct?
Or modify, those are the
Or
three
modify,
choices.
right.
Otherwise, council has not under your charter taken any action on this application.
I would, Mr. Chair.
You
I
recommend-
would move to accept the magistrate's proposal.
Mr. Carlson has moved it in a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote.
Viera. Citro. Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
No.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with Citro, Dingfelder, and Maniscalco voting no.
Council?
So Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. So council, having approved the special magistrate's recommendation, then your next step would be to implement that settlement recommendation, and you would do so by considering the ordinance that is before you, and just a couple of, I know there's a substitute ordinance that was presented. It was to substitute a page in Exhibit A, which is the special magistrate's recommendation. There was an error in the hours of operation that was agreed to, and it's found in Exhibit A of the ordinance on special condition or additional condition 1. The hours of operation, the Friday and Saturday hours of operation are now correctly listed as 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. midnight. The attachment had previously said 12 p.m., which, as you know, would only be a 4-hour window on Friday and Saturday for operation hours. So it's been corrected, and that is the substitute. I did want to make one other, and Mr. Manassi, I guess, can confirm this, but I believe the 3 additional conditions have been added to the site plan. There is also in the special magistrate's recommendation to be added to the site plan a statement that only the city council retains authority to amend or modify the redesigned site plan and the 3 conditions that are specified herein, regardless of any city code provision to the contrary. So we would ask that between first and second reading, that language be added to the site plan.
Mr. Carlson, Mr. Shelby, you're right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. The first order of business here then would be to accept the substitute ordinance with the amended exhibit.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carlson has moved it. Mr. Miranda has seconded. Roll call.
This is just to accept the substitute. And the amended attachment. Yes, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank
You
you.
want a roll call, right? No roll call? Roll call on that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
No.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Viera. Citro. And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with Dingfelder, Maniscalco, and Citro voting no.
And now with regard to Mr. Manassi with the site plan, is that what you'd like confirmation, Ms. Johnson Velez? If whether those
Brian
conditions
Manassi, Development Coordination. So the 3 modifications that were listed in the Fluidra process are on the site plan, with the exception of the note that Ms. Susan Johnson Velez stated for the record. So Mr. Bentley would be expected to add that note as described by Susan Johnson Velez between first and second reading, and turn those plans into the zoning department to be certified prior to second reading.
Would you like to have that affirmation by Mr. Bentley on the record, or is that sufficient, what you stated? Which do you prefer?
I think it'd be good to have Mr. Bentley confirm that you will add that additional note to the site plan.
Mark Bentley, so noted.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
Motion to move that, right?
well, the question is, that would be part of the reading of the title as a condition of between first and second reading, the amendments made, or the adjustments made between, revisions, excuse me, between first and second reading. Is that correct, Mr. Manassi?
That is correct.
So then, council, I believe the title is the same, but either way, the substitute is on the addendum, on the 3rd page of the addendum, the title for number 83, if somebody wishes to have that read by title only.
Mr. Carlson, since you started off, could you complete it, sir?
Yeah, which, just want me to say.
On your addendum.
Can I read the ordinance just like we always do?
Yeah.
83.
So I'd like to move file number AB 2-2103, substitute ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue, package sales, off-premise consumption only, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 236 North Dale Mabry Highway in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Ms. Miranda. Roll call.
Citro,
No.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Viera, and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried with Citro, Dingfelder, and Maniscalco voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 2nd, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, we got through that. All right, gentlemen, it's 12. It's going on 12. I said we go ahead and break it and kick it back up about 1:15. Sound good? All right.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes,
I
you
may, I
recognize?
have to inform you that I will have to leave at 2 o'clock. I have Florida League of Cities that I'm a board member of that I have to be at today.
We understand, sir.
In the morning or night?
Michelle, we stand in recess, Michelle.
Till what time, sir?
1:15.
1:15, thank you.
That is.
Orlando.
The slapping of a finger make a dog wag his tail. The whisper from a voice make a train jump the rail. You take her to the racetrack and show her her face. A horsing wind and yells coming first place. You know she's into something. Yeah, she's into something. You know she's into something. You should be into something too. About a week ago, but now she found a man with a lot of dough. Oh yeah, he's rich and got a lot of money, and all she have to do is to call him honey. You know she's into something. Yeah, that little girl.
We were able to construct the east-west green spine, which is a separated bidirectional cycle track that connects West Tampa to VM Ybor. This is a good example of a project that touches a few key initiatives of Mayor Jane Castor, including sustainability with porous concrete parking stalls, micromobility and multimodal connections with our green spine. Additional features include 6-foot wide accessible sidewalks and enhanced crosswalks, as well as new ADA accessible curb ramps.
I'm Jane Castor, Mayor of Tampa. I was born here and knew that I would never leave this city. When I decided to adopt my boys, I knew that Tampa was where we were going to raise them. Tampa is more than just a close proximity to beautiful beaches, Super Bowl champions, and Stanley Cup wins. The people of Tampa want to welcome you, no matter what your background is. We invite newcomers to be a part of this community and give them the support that they need to grow their careers and support their families. The reason we do this is simple. To us, Tampa isn't just a city or a place to live, it's home. From all of us here in Tampa Bay, we're happy to be honoring our hometown of Tampa, Florida. Hi, this is Mayor Jane Castor, and I want all parents in our community to know about the child tax credit. This really could be life-changing to many families in Tampa and cut in half the number of children living in poverty across America. The new program begins this month, providing payments to nearly every working family in the country. Most families are already signed up, but if you didn't file taxes or receive a stimulus check last year, please go to the IRS website and apply using the non-filer sign-up tool. All working families with kids under 18 can get a credit if they make up to $150,000 for a couple or $112,500 for a family with a single parent. If you already filed your taxes for 2019 or 2020, or if you signed up to get a stimulus check from the IRS, you may already see payments of $200 or $300 a month in your bank account automatically. If you didn't make enough to file taxes in 2020 or 2019, you can still get benefits. Low-income families with kids are eligible for this critical tax relief. It's not too late to sign up. You can use the IRS non-filer sign-up tool available on the IRS website to get the child tax credit and receive any missing stimulus payments. American families have been hit hard by COVID-19, and this tax credit will help lift up countless families who've struggled financially as we get back on track together. It's providing historic relief to so many families with kids, breaking cycles of poverty and helping families succeed. For more information, visit whitehouse.gov/child tax credit today.